Oh, my nausea, bro. It's hitting me.
Danaja is just a river in Egypt.
Good bit.
Layers.
Collusion at the highest levels.
Console Crusade podcast. Console Crusade Flucast, as Chris so eloquently put it. EJ Olson with Nick Durheim.
I'm feeling fine.
And poor Chris Gilly4.
Yep, I'm here. Excited as ever to be here, but
You've been fighting a little something, and I've been apparently fighting a little something, and Nick, you were waking up from a nap, and so we're kind of a weird, lazy Sunday afternoon pod.
I had a kind of a weird sort of nap fiasco today and yesterday, so it's turning into a thing, but I'll have to break that tomorrow because I have work.
A nap fiasco? Like, what happened?
Well, like, you know, you get up, you have some breakfast, you kind of laze around for a bit, and then suddenly you're asleep, and then you wake up and you have to do things. And it's like, I was not really prepared for this time travel that I subjected myself to.
Are you a 2-hour napper? Like, when you nap, it's a nap.
Bro, I don't have time for naps, generally, unless it's on the weekend, and it's like a caffeinated sort of affair where I don't really go deeply asleep, and then I wake up, and I'm just like, wow, that was weird.
a 2-hour nap, that's a sleep, homie. Nap is like 30, 40 minutes.
Brennan can't do it. If Brennan lays down to sleep, it's like his afternoon is gone. And it baffles me because he'll be like, I'm going to take a nap. I'll hit you up afterward. Like 4 hours go by and you're like, is Brennan alive? And he'll FaceTime me with one eye open on the couch. I'm like, are you just waking up right now? I am a professional napper. Like, I could lay down, put on an episode of TV, be out in 2 minutes. I can take a 15 to 35 minute nap, wake up like nothing ever happened.
Must be nice.
Yeah, and then that usually doesn't fuck up my sleep schedule if I stick to the short nap. If I go a little weird, like what's been happening lately is I'll like nap for like 15 minutes and I want to nap a little bit more. So you fall asleep and then that turns into an hour and then you wake up all fucked up. And that I don't like those, and that's what happened the other night. Those aren't fun. But anyway, we're here to talk about some stuff. We're gonna get through it. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. It'll be a little low energy, maybe.
We'll get through it.
I joked that I'm like, I'll try not to get up and vomit in the middle of this, but like I am fighting the nausea right now. It's very hot in my room. No body aches though, which is good. I've had body aches for 3 days, so I'm kind of hoping that whatever happened was in the middle of the night was sort of the peak of it, and now we're coming down, boys. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So let's just dive right into this. I know Brennan's not on this week. We just did our quarterly update, but so much happens in this league week to week that we kind of lose a lot of the shit talking and a lot of some of the fun stuff when we do the quarterly updates, because it's like, oh, that happened 3 months ago. Well, this weekend was arguably the busiest for a few reasons.
Oh,
EJ, I'm sorry. I already told Chris this, but I was planning on doing this barrage last week, but I just got busy with work and I wasn't getting home as early, so I just didn't end up pushing through with it. So
This worked out
that would have
fine.
been more interesting for Brendan to be on for that.
I know.
It happens.
To be fair, he was, I mean, I'll speak for Brennan when we get to that point, but he was mostly
You usually
absent
do.
this. Yeah.
You are his Nate.
Okay, so Nick, I'll start with you. You mentioned the barrage. We talked about on the podcast last week how you had 5 open slots, a super drop, and 2 prime candidates for regular drops. So a potential 8 slots to work with. And it happened this week. There were 9 games being bid on this week, all at once. Our cash was all over the place, and there was a lot of good games on the board. So to walk us through what you did, and then I guess Chris and I can get sort of into the machinations of the weekend.
oh, EJ, you have no idea.
Yeah, Chris trying to put in footwork. So, yes, there were 9 games bid on, 8 of them originating from me. If you look at the timestamps, you will see that I placed all of them at about 9:30 on Sunday morning. So that puts up about 2-3 hours before we recorded. And yeah, those were pretty much, I set them, I locked them in, didn't really look at them after that. I did go back and change some things because I was worried about the implications of conditional dropping the same game on multiple bids. Like if one bid went through, then I think that the second bid wouldn't go through because it was trying to conditionally drop a game that I'd already dropped based on priority.
Right.
Same.
So yes, I bid on Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, Persona 5 Tactica, Viewfinder, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Mortal Kombat 1, and Super Mario RPG Remake, with the intent of filling up at least 4 slots. I figured, EJ, you'd probably try to get 2, Chris would probably try to get 2, you guys would collide on one of them, and then it would just turn into a wash of plus 4 games for me.
So did you end up with the games that you wanted? Just top level here.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, I did the three games that I put top of the line as far as how much I was bidding on them. I knew that you would only go for one of them because you wanted to have your cash reserves. You were at $29, and so I put 17 on Mario RPG, and Mortal Kombat, because those I think are the highest scores of the batch that I bid on. Everything else was $1 because those are probably going to be great, but it's like take them or leave them.
Chris had $17 to spend. I had $29 to spend.
Right. And I knew that Chris wouldn't spend $17 on a game because he has 2 pickups. So he has to have at least $1 left for the scraps. You couldn't get 2 of my $17 games. I mean, I thought maybe that you'd go for like a bigger spend on whatever game you thought would be more worth it to you, like depending on what you thought I'd be bidding on. But then hilariously, you did throw in the wrench of the works with Red Dead Redemption Remake, which turned into a side hustle. Yeah, talk about that, Chris.
So this is the first. I text Nick and say, hey, how do you get a game added? Because I don't see it on the roster. And Nick, like a good league commish that he is, talks me through the process. I get it added. And he obviously puts 2 and 2 together because he's a smart lad, and it's like, oh, you're going after Red Dead Redemption Remaster, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, it feels more likely that that's coming out this year, which is still not a sure thing than than the Elden Ring DLC coming out this year. So I was like, what if? I was like, little did I know that Nick had already put like all 8 of these bids on other games out, and I was like, how funny would it be if I could hustle EJ into way overpaying for this fucking unannounced game? Like, what do you think we could get him to put like $15 on this game? Like, just really overspend on this game, desperately trying to get points to beat Nick. And I was like, okay, let's wait till all the bids drop and let's see how much we can get out of him.
So you two colluded on this. He's telling this to you, Nick, that you guys are trying to bait me.
I was very passive in my collusion. I can send you screenshots of the text. It was Chris trying to get me to work with him, and I'm just like, that sounds great. I wish for the best for you.
Oh.
This is a battle between you and EJ because I don't really want it. Like, you want information from me. I'm not going to give you information because you're also trying to go for me.
Oh,
so
no. You're conflating these collusions. We're just talking about Red Dead Redemption right now. We're just talking about Red Dead Redemption, which you were all in on, and the record would reflect that you were like, what an exact quote I think is most of my week is messing with EJ were your exact words. So anyway, that was all that we had talked about initially.
And look at this week. Look at this, literally most of this week.
Yeah, it's great.
I can't wait to talk about this.
When all the other bids shook out, I was sort of like, damn, maybe I actually will get this game for $1. And if I don't, I know that EJ is going to commit money that he thinks I'm committing to get this. And he ended up spending $9 on it, which is like, you have your $1 to get a counter pick if things go poorly with one of your 2 CPs, which is like looking more and more likely. We talked about last week. So I was like, all right, I'll take that as a partial win for sure, because my unannounced game is still announced and still has a chance of coming out, so I could still get points on the board. So that was collusion number 1. Then all the bids come out on Thursday. And I'm like, holy shit. All right, Nick went in. Like, this is the plot. Nick went in. He's trying to befuddle us. So I immediately text EJ. And I'm like, EJ, we have got to coordinate our efforts here, or as Nick just said a few minutes ago, I was fucking right that he's going to count on us bumping into each other, all going for the same games, and he's going to walk away with 4 or 5 games. So I managed to rope EJ's incredibly skeptical ass into an arrangement. He gets bred into the arrangement, and we coordinate everything. I mean, I'm talking down to like, I'm going for Wonder, he's going for Super Mario RPG, we're going to try and get Bren's Cyberpunk. And then if Wonder doesn't go, EJ was like, you should drop Pepper Grinder, which was great advice. and then split your money down into all these $8 bids and see if you could peel 2 games away instead of just one, which turned out to be great fucking advice. Like,
I knew that Nick would go top heavy because there was definitely a clear delineation between the Marios and the rest of these games, even though they all have potential. I knew you would go top heavy. And so that was my philosophy, is like, he can outbid you for whatever you want, Chris. So going all in on a single game is probably not a great idea.
no, I totally agree. My concern was that Nick had done more math and that these weren't just $1 bids, and that he was like, okay, so I'm planning on one of these top level games. EJ's going to snake it. It's just a matter of which one is it. And then doing all of your lower priority bids with higher dollar amounts to compensate for the fact that you were pretty sure that you were going to lose one of the higher level bids and would have that $17 still. So I'm picturing you, spreadsheet guy, with all this like trickle down fantasy critic economics, trying to figure out how much money am I going to have if I lose this one? Okay, I can bid like $9 here and 10 there, and it ended up like not being a thing. So I got a couple good games. But Nick, I want to loop back to what you were talking about earlier. When I saw all the bids, I was like, what if I could get EJ to coordinate bids, and then I could tell you what he was bidding, what like top line game he was trying to steal from you, and we could get him to pay a fuckload of money for it, and then you could just drop your bid to $1 knowing you're going to lose it anyway and invest your money somewhere else in exchange for you basically like signing over one of the games that I want to be. Nick was like never really on board with that idea, and in hindsight I was kind of like, there's really no incentive for him to do this. So obviously I didn't give him that information. Except at 3:30 when I put 2 and 2 together that you bearded son of a bitch were probably trying to steal Red Dead Redemption from me rather than letting it go.
You're going to be more specific with who the bearded son of a bitch is.
Oh, sorry, EJ. The Yeti of a man. Yeah, and texted Nick and was like, I have information. It will come at a price.
Not a good way to come begging for help.
Oh, please. Like, I knew I was getting at least one game this week, so it wasn't a matter of like, help me senpai. It was a matter of like, I might want to put a knife in EJ's back because I'm pretty sure that he is driving one into mine at this very moment, despite the fact that I've been on the level the whole time with all the information that I was giving you, except for the fact that also I was colluding with Nick. But everything that I told you that we did was true. And then even when I was like, what's to stop me from just telling Nick what your bid amounts are? He was like, well, you could do that. And I did try to do that for a second, which is, again, I'm being 100% honest with you about everything that I'm doing. And you still took Red Dead from me, which $9, hilarious to me to spend $9 on that. But
okay, let me break this down from my perspective. First of all, I only had one game slot, right? I had a drop, but the only thing that I could possibly drop is my unannounced slot. So overpaying for the unannounced doesn't matter. Whether I paid $1, $2, $10, it doesn't matter because I only had one game slot that I knew I was going to beat Nick out on something. I bid on every game this week. I had contingency bids on everything. I had money to play with. So I did the math. I'm like, if Nick goes top heavy on this, I will for sure win at least one of these games, and that'll be fine by me. So I only had one slot to play with. The unannounced was just sort of the freebie. I knew DK's not coming out. I know Fire Emblem wasn't going to come out, so here we are. The reports about the Red Dead, the Korea ratings board and some of the leaks, like fiscal year, GTA 4 potentially, Red Dead potentially, that could be in February, so there's nothing guaranteed. But once that last slot was filled up, I had nothing else to do with my money other than get my counter pick if I have to drop Alan Wake, right? So I wasn't up against the wall. Nothing you guys could have done or not done would have impacted sort of what I was going to do because I only had the one slot to play with. So first of all, I knew from the beginning, I suspected that you and Nick were working together. I didn't know to what level, but Brendan and I were in communication the whole time about like, Chris is obviously trying to fuck with us. I was assuming from the beginning you were telling Nick how much we were bidding on things, which is why Brendan and I both lied to you about how much we were bidding. I told you I was bidding like 18, I think. I'm like, okay, if Nick comes in and decides to outbid Chris, he might just bid a flat 18 because Chris only has 17. If they're working together, I'll tell Chris I'm bidding 18, then I'll bid 19 or 20, giving myself the best odds in case the collusion was on that level. I think Brendan told you he was bidding 8 or 6 and 6 on a couple games. in case, again, you were feeding information and Nick, like you said, was doing the math and going down like, okay, if EJ bids 18 on this and down the line, well, he's actually bidding 10, so he'll win out on something. So anyway, we had our bases covered there. We will collude with you in good faith. I won't lie to you about what I'm bidding on.
Good
I might lie
faith.
about, well,
I gave you 100% accurate information the entire
like your $15
time.
bid on Mario RPG. That was pretty accurate, Chris.
Obviously, you can outbid me. See, here's the thing, EJ. You're talking about like, oh, if Chris goes 17 on Mario RPG just in case, you can outbid me. What the fuck point would that be? Like, that's not sneaky. That's literally like first grade math, 18 greater than 17. Like,
But I'm just saying, you were like, I was honest about what I was bidding on this week. Well, you weren't.
I put contingency bid same as you. That like, let's say that you're actually trying to fuck me and bid on Wonder, knowing that you can outbid me and getting me stuck with lower tier games. Of course, I'm going to put $60 on Mario RPG just in case. You did the same thing. Like, this is all basis covering. And I did that at 345 for the record after I realized you were a snaky son of a bitch.
I was truthful in that what my priority of the bids was. I'm going to go for Mario RPG. That is my priority. And then I have contingency bids on everything except the 2 games that you would ask me not to bid on MK, and Brendan asked me not to bid on Cyberpunk. So I changed those bids to $1, put them at the bottom of my priority.
And I appreciate it.
But I had to have my bases covered, and Brendan had to have his bases covered. Nick, I'm sorry. The goal was to take as many of these games from you as possible.
It was.
I know you still have 3 slots.
I don't put 8 games into the hopper, not expecting people to take their pick of the litter.
But there was also a world where like, depending, like if you hadn't gone as top heavy and you spent all your money, you potentially could have taken everything from Brendan and Chris as well. It could have shaken out differently.
It could have.
But the bottom line was, I didn't trust you, Chris, from the get-go. And I even told you that. I was like, listen, I'll talk to you about this, but just know I'm going into this not believing a word you're telling me. So,
and everything worked out. If what you told me is true, you will have earned my trust, Samuel L. And I think that I have rightfully gained it.
We never talked about the Red Dead, right? Like, I, of course, wanted that because my only slot left to play with was the unannounced slot. Once I knew reasonably that I was going to take probably one of the Mario games, and if not, whatever. All the games this week look good. But after that, like I said, I only had my unannounced slot to play with. So, of course, I was going to come for Red Dead. I already thought about maybe trying to bid on GTA 4, but Red Dead's the one that has gotten a rating from the Korea ratings board. So, if any of them are coming first, that looks to be the one, right? So at this point, like I said, it doesn't matter if I'd spent $2 or $9. It was completely immaterial. So like, you got me, but like, I got exactly what I wanted out of this week. But we had not talked about Red Dead. I never was like, oh, I'm not going to take that from you. I said, I'm going to go in an RPG remake. I won't bid on MK if that's one of your contingencies. I did have Wonder as a backup there in case things got weird. But I was like, okay, if Nick bids, if Nick beats Chris with an $18 bid, I want to try to beat Nick with a $19 bid, right? So I was never going to hurt you, Chris, with that. It was only a contingency in case Nick, beat you and I lost Mario RPG. So anyway, I spent a lot of time doing the math. Brendan and I spent a lot of time going back and forth during the workday. And Bren, I'm going to throw you under the bus here a little bit, buddy, but he really wasn't on board with some of the tactics. He was like, well, I'm just going to tell Chris how much I bid. I'm like, no. You just tell him you bid 6 and 6 in case he's feeding information to Nick. He's like, well, why don't I just tell him it's 10? Why would I be bidding 6? I was like, just lie to him.
6 and 6 was dumb because I can bid 8 and 8. So if I wanted to, and if he had been bidding 6 and 6, I could have just outbid him on anything. What did he actually bid?
Well, this is why I also was trying to tell him that, because he only bid on, I think, 3 games. I was like, have contingency bids on every game. I think he wanted to put $10 in. I said, put $10 on every game this week, and you'll win one of them.
And he did. He got one of them.
He did.
And I dropped Cyberpunk to $1, as the ledger shows. Like, I did the things I said I was going to do, even though I was like, why? Like, first of all, I don't think Cyberpunk's going to score well. So I was like, you can have it.
I think
it'll do fine.
Great judgment this year, Brennan. Sorry. I mean, it's not going to be like a 72, but I don't know if it's going to crack 80.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think this is what redeems.
It's like an 83.
Yeah, it's going to redeem the game. It's going to redeem CD Projekt Red.
Okay, we'll see.
I mean, this was an all-day affair. We were sending voice memos, and poor Brendan's at work getting blown up
Rent free.
Yeah, dude, seriously, dude.
I went out of service range right after the bids process. So I was literally able to like see how things shook out, and then I got into the pass and I lost service. So I was like, this is great, because if I had been out there all fucking day just going like, well, I hope I didn't get fucked, that would have been really sad.
Dude, I literally text Brendan at one point. I say, I think Chris is doing math for Nick so we can beat everyone out. Chris knows he can't catch up to Nick. At this point, he just wants me to lose so bad. I said, this is revenge for all of our colluding, Bren. I was convinced that Chris was trying to fuck me, so I was trying to keep him at arm's length. Nick, you see what you're doing to your friends?
Yeah, it's hilarious.
You're tearing
You
us
guys are
apart.
just so ready to collude, but also backstab each other. And I'm just sitting here like, I don't know. Chris wanted to like try to feed me information. Like, I don't need information from Chris. I already know what y'all are going to do. So it's like, I work with that in mind. Like, I don't think I'm going to get everything. That's a foolish position to try and put myself in.
Right.
So yeah, you can have what I let you have. So, and you ended up spending too much on Mario. $19 for Mario RPG. You think that's going to be a 1-to-1?
I didn't spend too much because I have nothing else to spend the money on. Again, I have one slot to work with.
I know, but that's the one. Like, you think that's going to do better than Mortal Kombat and Mario Wonder? I just think that's interesting. That's all.
No, I think Mario Wonder probably has a higher potential, but
I don't agree with
Chris,
that at all.
Why didn't you put the eggs in that basket?
we had talked and I said, I want RPG. And he says, I'll take Wonder. And so
Okay, so you thought there was a world where I would let Chris have Wonder? Like, that's you think little of me in that regard.
forget about a world where Mortal Kombat 1, Super Mario Wonder, RPG remake, RPG, I think clearly and plainly has the highest potential score-wise. I think that like side-scrolling Mario could be 85, could be 90. I think that Mortal Kombat could be 82, could be 88, could be 90 if it's like the best Mortal Kombat in literally a decade.
Street Fighter 6 got a 92.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it would have to be a generationally good game. Mortal Kombat 11, I think, was like an 83 or an 84, maybe like an 85.
Mortal Kombat 11 is an 88.
Well, so there you go. Like, is it? Well, then
Wow.
maybe it's the like definitive edition that dropped a bunch of points. I don't remember. There's like a couple.
I think that was the definitive edition. 11 Ultimate is an 88.
Okay, well there we go. Yeah, so they had to improve it for it to get those like that 5-point bump. I think the original one was an 82 or an 83. So I was like, okay, so fighting games, Mercurial, we don't know. Mario RPG, as we've learned this year, if you remake an outstanding game and you do a good job, it's going to get an outstanding score. It's an 89 on Metacritic on Super Nintendo, and there are no like systems jank to be accounted for, a la System Shock, that would cause a really good remake to get dropped point-wise. This is way more in the territory of Metroid Prime, Resident Evil 4, certainly, or even Dead Space, of like really nice polish. The core of the game still holds up. I just replayed this game not that many fucking years ago. It's a great RPG. It's like unimpeachably good. And now it's going to be playable on Switch. Easily the highest point potential.
I worry. I went back last night and I watched a bunch of the footage of it. And there was just something about it that felt a little Fisher Price to me in a way that I was like, could this be like a 78? Like, could people just be like, hey, it's a classic, but like this was not enough?
No. There is
No shot.
no fucking way.
I'm putting this strictly in Link's Awakening territory, like high 80s, but it will not breach 90.
You think it's going to do the Metroid Prime?
No.
Yeah, that's fair. High 80s would be good. Yeah, I mean, Wonder to me, I mean, the new Super Mario Bros. Series, like they have not been world beaters from a score perspective. So maybe the rebound effect.
Yeah, that's
you know?
exactly the thing. Like, this is also the first stylistic change in over 15 years. So I think that carries a little bit of water.
Well, and some people have said, is this really that big of a stylistic change, looking at like screen by
yes, it
screens of
is.
each of them? Look, I'm not saying that it isn't, but I am saying if the perception from a lot of reviewers is this is really like a small step forward and a lateral step in other ways, it could be an 83. I mean, some of the new series has scored that low.
Sure. Yeah, I'd put the floor at about, low 80s.
Yeah, I agree.
To the casual Mario fan, the people who are going to be, buying this game, and a lot of the people who are going to be reviewing this game, like if they had gone like a whole new sprite-based sort of thing, which would have been so cool. I would have been so stoked to get a fucking sprite-based mainline Mario again. I don't think this is a meaningful enough jump from the new Super Mario Bros. Series.
Yeah, we'll see, because it's going to be mechanically, like that's going to be the thing that differentiates itself and like makes it really interesting. Will be the things that they do new. That's not just the looks. Like we can only judge
Yes.
the looks because that's the majority of what we've seen. We've seen some fun little things that they do, but that's every Mario game. It's always chock full of interesting and unique level layouts and mechanics that are used once and then never talked about again.
To casuals like God is a geek, all Marios are basically the same, Nick.
Yeah, but that's also going to be one reviewer out of 150. Like, this is going to be a very reviewed game.
That is a much higher potential for more and more casuals to be reviewing the game who think all Marios are the same. You run, you jump, you get power-ups, and that's as far as they think about it.
I mean, yeah, show me where that shakes out in the past. Like, you get things like Redfall where it's a broken mess and then it gets piled on because it's fun to dunk on it and everyone wants to get their shot in as well. And that gets heavily reviewed. But all the games that get like a ton of reviews are because they're highly popular and usually very, very good.
Ooh, New Super Mario Bros. Deluxe got a 79, dude. What?
That's a port.
Yeah, it's a port.
What did the original get?
The original got like an 85.
Yeah, and that's like the 5th in a series that people were tired of.
Yeah, I think the first one got like an 88 on DS, like an 88 or an 89. Yeah,
People love the DS and the Wii one.
really refreshing. And then they all got kind of samey, which is again where I'm like,
Yeah, for sure.
high ceiling, but very middling floor, which is why I'm like, RPG is the way to go anyway. And I couldn't have outbid you either, EJ.
This isn't a Odyssey scenario where it's like a return to form in a 3D exploration-based Mario game. This is another 2D Mario, so it has a lower ceiling than what like Odyssey did, because obviously Odyssey is like one of the highest reviewed games of all time.
Yeah, which is crazy.
It is crazy. So I don't know. I think it could break 90, but I don't know if it will. I don't know if any of these games, none of these games for sure break 90. And then the ceilings for a lot of these games is probably hard 90. How crazy would it be if we get this many 90s in the league, though? I mean, it's
been such a good year. It's been such a good year, man. Oh God, I cannot wait for these
We
games.
are eating.
So, Nick, you ended up with, just to reiterate, you ended up with Viewfinder, Wonder, Mortal Kombat, and Shadow Gambit: The Cursed Crew, which actually looks kind of fucking cool.
Yeah, and the studio is just like so consistent in what they make, and they always get like mid 80s reviews. So it's like that's one of those safe kind of unsung hero bids that I knew no one else would be going after, because they'd be going after the glamour of Mortal Kombat and Cyberpunk, which Cyberpunk I'm still like kind of iffy on. So that's why that was another $1 bid. And now, like before, I was sitting with 5 open slots. Right now, because of my conditional drops, I'm sitting with 3 open slots, $20, and I can pick whatever I want for the rest of the year with 0 interaction with anybody.
Yeah.
No problems.
Yeah. Real quick on Shadow Gambit. So I am historically a fan of RTS games. I mean, some of the classics, Age of Empires and Rise of Nations and stuff like that. So it's combat oriented, but it's like city building and amassing armies and
Resource gathering.
Exactly. This is like, to me, and this might be uninformed, but I was like, it's like an RTS XCOM game where it's like combat based, single character interaction, and it's all in this like fantastic cartoony pirate coat. Totally up my alley. I'm like, I might play that. I thought this was a bait bid when I thought this and Viewfinder were bait bids until we looked into it. It was funny, the day the bids went live, I was in Discord with Brennan, and a buddy of his dropped in who we used to play Warzone with. Haven't talked to him in months. And he drops in, and the first thing, we're telling him, we're like in the middle of colluding, and he drops in, he's like, what are you guys talking about? And we explained to him the league, and he's like, oh, that's really cool. He's like, who bid on Viewfinder? And we're like, yo, that literally is a bid this week. And he told us about Viewfinder. He's like, it's like Portal, but you're using a camera. It's really trippy.
Oh, that's that game. Oh, shit. Yeah, that game looks
EJ, you can play the demo.
Super fucking cool.
No bait bids, Nick. You were really, truly happy with anything on the list this week. So
Brennan got Cyberpunk. Chris, you got the Weeb games.
I did. I got Like a Dragon, which is probably a safe 81, 82, and Persona, which I would say, Tactica. I looked at like Q and Q2 as like a reference point for scores. So I feel like mid to high 80s as a ceiling is definitely probable. Like these spin-offs, tactic-based spin-offs are like really popular.
they were all good games.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I feel really happy with the RPG remake. I feel like it does have the highest ceiling, but it also has, I think, the highest possibility for like, the variance of like 78 is like an exaggeration, but like I can see sort of the fatigue, like the remake fatigue, and like But maybe I underestimate how beloved RPG is.
You do.
You know?
Desperately underestimate how beloved
that's great
this
for
game
me.
is. It is great. And I'm trying to like talk your anxiety down from making you second guess this incredible acquisition. Like, it's a great fucking game.
Square could put out some janky remakes though. It seems like this is a Square joint just based on that trailer alone and how many shots there were of like a CG cutscene, but with just like no actual audio associated with it, just background music happening. So I think back to like Trials of Mana, and that's like a 78. That was a remake of a game from the SNES. I mean,
Yeah.
it's possible.
I know. Well, that was kind of my concern. I'm really happy to have gotten Red Dead, regardless of how much I was spending on it, because again, I don't need my money anymore.
Yeah, if that actually comes out this year, then you have turned your ship around and you are now sitting very, 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 very pretty, as opposed to just very, very pretty.
If RPG hits and Forza hits and Sea of Stars hits, like I'm comfortably ahead. But Red Dead Redemption is really I mean, listen, their fiscal year ends at the end of March, as is typical for a lot of these companies. It's coming, right? At some point.
Just when?
It's just when.
And is it going to be a Grand Theft Auto trilogy bad?
Well, the rumors, they're just rumors, but the rumors are that this is a more of a proper remake. Talk that it's just built on Red Dead 2 essentially, which there's no reason not to do that when you have
Right.
Red Dead
Same
2
map.
sitting there. The GTA trilogy was a disaster, and it was they had some third party do it, and it was just
Yeah, they cheaped out.
it was awful. But the GTA 4 rumors are also intriguing. I would love a proper current gen remake of GTA 4. That'd be really cool.
I have not seen any of that.
Well, it's just speculated because Take Two at their earnings report, they confirmed that they have 2 re-releases coming, and people are just assuming that one of them is Red Dead and one of them is GTA 4.
No,
so
obviously the other one's going to be table tennis.
yeah, I'm here for that too.
It's Bully.
Bully 2 specifically.
Bully is more likely than Grand Theft Auto 4.
You think?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool too, though. I mean, it's not GTA
Smaller
4,
scope.
but it's cool. Could be cool. All right. Well, that was the league this week. Any parting thoughts, Nick?
Obviously, I was considering the strategy of just doing it week by week, doing one bid every single week. But I mean, what does that do beside give you all more time to oppose me? As opposed to if I do this right now,
Yeah.
do it all in one, then you're scrambling to try and collude, failing at it, and I still come out with everything I pretty much wanted. So, yeah, this was a much better approach.
So everyone won this week, and now we truly can sit back and just watch you from afar and hope that you don't play catch up. Because let's see, Chris, you don't have any slots left.
Nope, and I don't have any. I have drops, but
You have
I
a
think
dollar.
I saved $1.
Just in case a last minute delay for like a dragon or something like that.
Yeah, or honestly, if there's another big scuttlebutt about announcement imminent, release imminent in the vein of RDR, I could like quickly drop Elden Ring and like shuttle that in.
If GTA 4 gets announced before Red Dead, then you can pivot and laugh in my face.
Well, if it gets announced, I can't put it in the unannounced slot. So
Well, the unannounced, I
That's
mean, you
true.
have to compete with Brennan's $2.
That's
You can do
true.
the same.
he needs to keep a drop. He needs to keep a drop for one
Right.
of these games that don't look good.
I have to take Brennan out to a really nice dinner so I can convince him to keep Cosmic Wheel on the board as my counterpick alternative.
Oh my God, just stop it. This is no. This is not collusion. This is, speaking of bully, like this is just you making Bren your league lackey. I refuse. Brennan,
Yeah,
Don't do
EJ's
this.
personal whipping boy.
You should have seen me try to convince him that, hey, you're so far behind in the league. Wait for Nick to spend all of his money, and then you can drop me Spider-Man 2. But he didn't go for that.
that's
He
the
said
dumbest
no.
thing I've ever
I would have
heard.
kicked you from the league if you guys did that. Honestly, it would just be me and Chris, and you could just watch.
I would agree with that decision 100%, even if it fractured this podcast in half.
We ain't breaking rules, we're breaking hearts.
You're breaking the spirit of the game.
Exactly. That would be so in breaking. You know what that would be? EJ would be
That'd be breaking
trading.
my
It
trust.
would be trading Damian Lillard to the Miami Heat for Tyler Hero, motherfucker. That's what that would be. So time for you to take a look in the mirror.
Boy. I'm getting buckets.
Time for you to take a look in
You'd
the
have
mirror.
0 points on the board by the end of the game. I mean, if that's what you want.
Next year, I propose that we do away with super drops, but we enable trades.
I agree.
We get the side bets going, and then it really becomes the arithmetic of like, do I want the bottle of whiskey at the cost of, losing the league
Console
to
Crusade
EJ.
Collusion cast.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Let's
no
fucking
collusion.
go.
No collusion. No collusion.
Collusion!
Witch hunt.
All right.
I just don't want to turn every year into the 2v1 against me because you're so afraid of me. Even
Stop
though
being
I'm not
so good
doing
then.
That much better than you.
If you could just come out and lay a fucking egg, we wouldn't worry about you.
EJ, you're already doing so well this year. You don't need to like arm twist Brennan into being your subordinate. Just fucking play
we
the
have
game.
like the same average fucking points right now per game. Nick is 7 points per game ahead of us right now. I know we've got more games released, but like it's not just about the points, it's about averages. He's killing us.
Do better.
We're trying, Chris.
I know we are. Anyway, I would agree with trades because then if you wanted Spider-Man 2 and Brent's like, well, I'm going to fucking lose, you could be like, okay, I'll hook you up with Sea of Stars. I'll hook you up with the unannounced Red Dead and put a package together for Spider-Man 2 that is fair and also satisfied your sick need to bend Brennan to your will to beat Nick in a fucking fantasy video game league.
Oh, this has been great. This is all Nick wanted 3 years ago when this started. Like, it's coming to fruition. It's happening.
He's had a shit-eating grin on his face the entire fucking segment, just like listening to me and you yell at each other about, well, I couldn't have outbid you anyway. Well, I didn't trust you from the beginning. And Nick's just like,
Yeah, in the group chat, EJ's like, I can't wait to hear Nick yell about this. I'm like, I don't think I've raised my voice really.
Maybe I just underestimated. Well, clearly I did. I was like, if we come in and snake 4 or 5 games from Nick, he's going to be like, what the fuck? Collusion, and be mad about it. But clearly you had thought about this eventuality.
I assume collusion at all points because I know who I'm dealing with.
We're all trying to
EJ,
win.
who just openly admitted that he would use Brennan like a second slot for him.
Brennan, I love you. Listen, if Brennan was doing better,
don't victim blame Brennan.
it's just the way the chips fell and that he made some questionable decisions. But hey, at least he's trying to be competitive. He's trying. He took some swings. They didn't hit. But now he's sitting at 57 points. I went through and did some quick math on Brennan, sort of taking the under on my predictions, which
He'll break like 120.
Yeah, I think he'll be. That was basically what we got to. I was like, you'll hit about 120, maybe a little more, probably a little bit less. You know, if there's some, like if Replace hits at an 85, well, he's still not going to be able to beat Chris. But, you know, he's putting up points. He's doing better than Chris and I did last year, without a doubt.
Yeah, he's doing great.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, he's doing bad, but he's doing
That
good.
was your second year.
exactly. That's my point. Brent, if you're listening, you're doing so much better than we have historically. So I don't know if that's through some sort of osmosis or if it's just because you've been listening to the podcast for years, but like you're kind of coming in behind the curve because we're all sick in the head and we've been doing this for 3 years.
He also only just got unlucky with like 2 games. You know, if you look at his board, like Suicide Squad, obviously, we all had that, you know, draft game get delayed. I mean, that's not wild. I just sniffed it out as far as picking it as it being bad. I mean, it still could be bad, but it's not coming out. And then Destiny 2 took a wild swing on an expansion he shouldn't have.
An unforced
And then
error.
Atomic Heart looked really good, but it didn't pan out. So what is that? That's two misses. I'm sitting over here with Blanc at a 68
and Benedict
and
Fox.
Forza underperforming, you know? So like it happens.
He had bad luck on Benedict Fox too, which he super dropped.
Right.
Oh God, that was a long ass 1 week update. Although it was a very loaded week, but
A lot of fun. Let's pivot into some stuff we've been playing. Nick, you said that you've been messing around with RetroArch, or RetroArch as I like to call it. I too have been doing that, but what have you been doing? Has it been on a handheld or on your PC?
On my PC, I do not have a handheld that I would use it on, I guess. I mean, I guess I could put it on my phone, right? But I don't know if my phone, what would I play on my phone that I would want to play on my phone, you know?
DS games?
I don't want to play DS games. I don't want to simulate buttons
yeah,
on a mobile phone.
not clicky enough.
Get a little
Not like
insert
me.
thing you put your phone into, and then you have controls, and then you can touch screen the DS screen.
Bro, I know that I like my Android phone ecosystem, but the one downside, like the biggest downside, is the large variety of phones. So the things that can work with Android phones are not as good as the things that can work with iPhones because there's like a singular design and physical dimensionality to the iPhone that you cannot get with a Android phone.
That's
So
fair.
I don't know if there's really anything that would be of a good enough quality that I would actually want to interact with and put on my phone. I mean, that's just not the life I want to live. I'm going to play a DS game. I'll play it on my DS and a flash cart because I have that. but I also need to replace
That's
the screens on my DS because the color gamut is like all fucked up and weird. I don't know what happened. Anyway, I've just been playing some. I've got all these freaking ROMs, so I figured I'd check out some of those in RetroArch and play around with the filters because the CRT filters have gotten so good, and it looks really nice to just like throw on an SNES game and get that blur. You can even put on like the CRT whine, like you can set the frequency so it just completely emulates the full experience. It's ridiculous and stupid.
They're so tunable with like the different gamma and the bloom and like, are you using CRT Royale? Is that your go-to?
I was using CRT Consumer.
Okay.
It lets you churn off and on interlacing and set you got all different kinds of sliders. But yeah, Royale is pretty similar in its look. You set like the masking and like I don't know. There's a lot of different terminology that I'm sure if I knew CRTs better, I would have a better idea on. But I was just like A/B testing a lot of things just to get it looking the way I wanted it to. And the nice thing is you could save it to the entire, like you save the setup that you just made and then apply it to every single game you're playing, regardless of system. So if I want to play a PSP game but make it look like I'm playing on a TV, I can do that. And it's got the nice 16:9 ratio because that was those were widescreen games, and then still get that blurriness because it's a 270p screen. So I was playing some E7 with the CRT blur, and it was just looking real nice. Having a good time with that.
I really admire both of your dedication to how your nostalgia looks. That I'm sitting here like listening to y'all talk about this and going, man, I just have no fucking interest in that when I'm playing older SNES games. Like I would and have and will again just throw my Super Nintendo onto a high definition television and pretty much won't care as long as game mode's on. I don't have any input delay. I don't care because for me it's about how it feels, and it's definitely about how it sounds. Like when I reflect back on what it feels like to play Mega Man X at Nana's house, it's not about what it looks like on a CRT. It's about the soundtrack. It's about what I felt like. It's about that. But for y'all, the visual nostalgia, like I respect that. I respect that you've gone out and found ways to make it look like how you remember so that you can get that same feeling. I think that's really cool that those options are out there.
Yeah, and there's just such a large gap between what a game looks like on an LCD screen versus what a game looks like on a CRT screen, where the bloom and the blur, these games were designed visually around that. And I'm sure EJ's frantically searching up examples like that Skeleton Man. That's always the number one thing that shows up, or something from any of the Japanese games that have sort of the anime aesthetic. Like they utilize the CRT's natural effects of bloom and blurring to anti-alias games that wouldn't have the color gamut and like the number of pixels to do otherwise, to fill in the gaps and make details where they wouldn't have been able to before. And I've talked about that before in the past, talking about ghosting and how game makers on the Game Boy, especially because there's such a prominent ghosting effect on that LCD screen, would use that to their advantage and create transparency effects where there were none. So you'd have some stuff like Link's Awakening, where Chain Chomp's chain is like flickering on and off every other frame, but because of the way the Game Boy screen works, it turns into a translucent effect. And that shit like that is so cool. You have that also with Mega Drive games with stuff like Sonic, and like, I don't know, it's just to play the game as it was originally created is important. So I like to try to get as close to that scenario as possible, because I don't want to be the sicko who is collecting all these games again necessarily. I like having the handheld games because they're small, they're easy to tuck away, but I can't be getting SNES games now, especially I'm priced out. Like it's just I'm too late to it. So I would rather just put it on my computer, get close enough. And I also like tweaking with things, and gives me more options to tweak than me. What would my options be if I had a CRT and like I'm either messing with that CRT or getting multiple CRTs, just trying to find that perfect one. Like that's very, very beyond what I'm looking for.
Oh.
I'd rather just move sliders and like get close enough, you know?
So that was sort of my philosophy was, it's mess around with retro
Exactly.
art.
And I don't want to be like EJ.
Well, listen, that's what I've been doing this week is I have my CRT in my office now, hidden away in the closet. But I was like, okay, how can I maximize? Because, to preface, I bought a bunch of EverDrives when I sold my collection. And I was like, all right, any new games I play on the original hardware on a CRT. And if I love the game, I'll buy a physical copy. But otherwise, this is how I'm going to kind of roll from now on. So I finally got all that set up. I bought some nice S-video cables for the retro consoles. So, finally have done away with composite on everything except for the NES, which is great. But I've been going down the rabbit hole of CRTs, and like repairing a CRT or calibrating a CRT is sort of beyond me at this point. It's just too much and it's dangerous.
Unless you want to die.
Well, yeah. Because I have a really nice CRT. It's like one of the more sought after ones. It has S-video and component inputs. So I bought a couple of switchers, but I have some convergence issues on my TV. So some of the colors are janky and there's like warping depending on how much of a certain color is being displayed. So it's like really unfortunate, but it's close enough, And messing with RetroArch and playing some like GameCube, like it's fun, but like I just couldn't get the controller situation how I wanted it, and I was just like, fuck it. Like I'm just an OG hardware kind of guy. And Chris, I did put a bunch of examples into the group chat of like the difference between a CRT and an LED screen, and it is one of those things we've talked about. Like, why does this game look so much worse than I remember? It's because it does. Because you played it at a time where, like Nick said,
they could mask it.
Not even like masking things like, the shitty technology obfuscates how bad our art is. It's intentionally creating these assets to look a certain way because of our display technology.
I'm looking at it right now, and like, yeah, when I look at it like this, like side by side, absolutely, I would 100% agree with you. I don't have the working memory of that. Like, it's just not how I remember these. And so, if I did though, of course, I would look at that and go like, oh, what the fuck is wrong with this? But yeah, it's just 100% of like, where does your nostalgia live? And Nick, I know you're really auditory with like game soundtracks, but also like clearly the visual component, very, very important to you too. And EJ, of course, like as discussed, you're like a
purist of sorts.
Videophile. Yeah.
It's not even necessarily like, oh, it's how I remember it. It's like, to me, trying to play a Super Nintendo game on an HDTV looks bad. Like I'm like, this is terrible. It's not even about like, it's not how it's supposed to look, or it's not how I remember it. It's like, this looks bad, and I don't like to play things that look bad.
And I wouldn't say that I'm that far gone. Like I've played plenty of games. I remember the way I played Earthbound was on an emulator on my old laptop back at the townhomes, EJ. So like 2012, 2013, around there.
Right.
And that was just full screen on my laptop, no filters or anything. I mean, maybe like a very basic scan line, because the power of these computers were so much worse, and the effort put in by the community was not there yet to properly try to deep dive into simulating a CRT. So you would get like very, very basic, very, kind of shitty looking filters, but this is what we had. And I was fine with that. That's like okay by me, but just the way that these things have gone, and they look so much better. And I'm working with a 1440p screen that's like 28 inches across. So like I've got so much room to play with that 256 by 224 size on an SNES that like you can really get a lot out of each pixel. So it's awesome to be able to flex my too powerful computer to be playing SNES games for sure. But like it's fun to play around with that. So yeah, the options are available. So there's no reason not to.
So what have you been playing? You said you're messing around with Ease on the PSP.
Yes, I was playing Ease 7 for a few hours. I was kind of just hopping around. I needed my problem most of the time with emulation is that I get frozen with choice. Yeah. So what I need to do is just like dedicate myself, say, hey, I'm only going to play this game until I'm like tired of it, or I like need to change to something else. I can't just be, popping in and out. I can't just be surfing channels with emulated games, because I will have no reason to stick with one. Like I have to have the pressure of sticking with one in order to stick with one. But yeah, I haven't really decided what else I'd want to play. I'm kind of like, we were just talking earlier that I just finished Zelda, so I'm like between games. I kind of have that gaming hangover from such a large, expansive world. Like, what do you play after such a huge game? Like, so
Kirby.
I kind of reverted back to like, OG, yeah, play something old.
Bite-sized.
Play Kirby, play Ease, like just a simple hack and slash RPG. I was thinking, Live Alive came out last year. It'd be cool to kind of like dip in and play some of those other SNES RPGs from Enix or from Square that never got shipped over in the West, like Bahamut Lagoon and Terranigma. I know got like a UK or that was one of those ones that came out in not our region but somewhere else, but it's like well loved. So I was thinking about that, and like I don't know, I had RetroArch downloaded a while ago because I actually had my computer hooked up to a CRT that's sitting behind me, but I never ended up getting that working the way I wanted it to. It's tough because you have to set the resolution to like, I don't know, it's like squashed horizontally, so I'd have to like artificially stretch things vertically so it actually looks right on the 4:3 screen. So I never got that working, but I figured with the filters I can just play it for realsies on my monitors in front of me and not really miss out on too much.
Right. I too have kind of been bouncing around ROMs. You know, once I got my TV setup going, I started. Well, first of all, I started the Fire Emblem Path of Radiance on the GameCube that Brandon let me borrow.
Nice.
Borrow again. I'm only a few chapters in, but my only real takeaway right now is A, I miss a lot of quality of life features in recent games, and B, holy shit, have English localizations come so far since the early aughts. But other than that, I tested all my systems. You know, I have my NES, I have my SNES, I have my 64, and my PS2. And so I just kind of been testing everything out. I played a little bit of Plock, as we talked about.
You having a great time?
It is definitely a platform on the Super Nintendo, but
one of the games of all time.
Certainly is.
You got to beat Plock. Get you something that has save states so you can beat Plock, because you're not going to beat it without save states unless you're a true psychopath like someone from the Forer clan. Shout out Joey, who speedruns this game.
I played like Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo. Like, there's so many bad games on Super Nintendo. It's pretty absurd. But dude, I played Jeopardy across multiple systems. I don't know why. I played it on the NES, and I kind of got a kick out of, you know, it has you like inputting answers, you know, by hand, one character at a time. But I'm kind of a sucker for Jeopardy, and so I never played a Jeopardy game, so I was fucking with that. And then I went all the way up to N64. By the N64, there's like shitty compressed video of Alex Trebek being like, "Ooh, sorry," and
Nice.
computer assisted answers.
No.
So you start typing something and you can filter through all the answers it gives you to try and, you know, answer quicker. And
Would you say this is your favorite genre of game show?
genre.
Rest in peace, that weirdo.
Oh, we don't deserve him.
When's the last Jeopardy game that came out?
There was probably one on Switch.
Yeah, I know there's one on Wii,
Probably.
but I'm sure that there's one on Switch.
Yeah. I played a little bit of Mario Golf 64 last night, which, you know, Mario Golf games have kind of been the same for 20 years, ever since they went away from doing the RPG thing. But I got a kick out of that. You know, just kind of, like I said, testing everything out, seeing how things work with the EverDrives, and getting a kick out of the nostalgia a little bit. I played a lot of Simpsons Road Rage the other night. Dude, I fucking love that game. People I know Hit and Run is sort of the go-to Simpsons game, but Road Rage is just goated for me.
It's great. Man, I've not been sticking to my rotation. Like a week ago, I was sort of like, all right. I was like, what do I actually want to play? And I think the answer was pretty apparent looking back on the summer of stuff that I went, I'll put that off till next week. And next week just like never came. I'm doing an hour. Well, I'm not doing an hour of Spyro. I'm doing like a good chunk of Spyro on Fridays. I'm trying to beat like half a world per session. So like 3 levels. So like I'll get to a new world. I'll do the like overworld 100%, and then I'll jump into 2 levels, 100% those levels. Like that's a Spyro Friday. I just finished up the swamp in Spyro 1. I think it was Beastmakers, and now I'm moving to Dreamweavers. Beastmakers, including like just one of the most bullshit levels of classic PS1 platforming jank, where it's like, this is like beautifully designed if you're like a goddamn super genius and you can just figure this out by yourself. Like in the treetops level, you have to do this like triple supercharge ramp jump in 2 different configurations, including like landing and going backwards up one of the ramps in order to like get to these 2 specific areas. I'm like, I would literally have never figured this out without YouTube. So I'm glad I'm coming to this as an adult and not a kid, because there's no fucking way I would have figured that out. And that's kind of been, by and large, my experience. Like at least once per world, I hit a level where I'm like, I don't fucking get what you want me to do here. Like, I don't know what you want me to do here. And I'm assuming it's a little better in Spyro 2 because that's what's on our top 100, and I'm looking forward to getting there. In the same way that like Crash 2 was like a big jump over Crash 1. I'm hoping for that. But I'm kind of like, man, this is a little irksome how often I have to look something up.
EJ, as a Spyro connoisseur, and coming from me, a person who owns the trilogy, should I just skip 1 and not do the Chris thing? Just go to 2? And do I even play 3?
2 is a definitively better experience than the first one. I'm also coming at this from someone who was platinuming these games, so the trophy list...
As am I.
You're 100%ing them. You're not platinuming them.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Like, it's...
100% is probably worse than platinum for these games, right?
Well, you have to 100% to get the platinum as well, but the trophy list for all 3 of these games introduces a number of additional, like, certain time trials on all of the aerial levels, which are infuriating.
Nope, fuck that.
The trophy list on the first game is a nightmare. The second game less so, and then the third game, the trophy list is simple. But the second game is my favorite. But Spyro 2, I can't remember a single thing about that game that got me, beating my head into a wall. Like maybe only one thing, now that I'm thinking about it, that drove me crazy and that I had to look up in one of the hub worlds. But whatever, right? The third game was like super easy. They introduced a lot of like different playable characters. There are like shmup levels where you're playing as Sparks. Those were annoying from a trophy standpoint, but like I would say you could probably skip 1. Like there's no deep Spyro lore that you're missing out on, Nick. It's like eating a fucking cheeseburger. Like if you've eaten a cheeseburger, you've eaten a fucking cheeseburger. Like you don't need to eat 3 of them,
Right.
Unless you're truly a sicko.
I'm having a good time, and this is all like 100% brain. So Nick, if you just want to like beat Spyro 1, you're not gonna run into any of these things.
If you're not 100%ing this game, there's no point in my eyes in playing them.
I look at the 3 games and I see, okay, this is a series that I have very minimal nostalgia for. So it is more me just coming at it from a historical context of like, okay, this is kind of like Banjo-Kazooie, but not as good, but more weird and like trying some different things, like more of a...
You sure about that?
It's a different sort of approach to it. More levels, less interesting, less polished. But
yeah, I know, I agree. I have small gripes about the way the game feels too, especially coming from Crash. Because did I talk about this on the podcast that like the PlayStation 1 platformer timeline diverged and there's like Crash people and Spyro people. And I feel really firmly that even if people played both games, they land in one camp. Like I'm a Crash person. I never played Spyro games. So like Crash is precise. I know exactly what it is going to do at any given time based on the buttons I press, period. It is tight. Spyro 1, there's still moments where I'm like, and that is not what I thought that was going to do. It's a little floaty. It's less, the jumps are very floaty. It's not precise. I feel that I'm some of the ways that the camera will work, especially when you're like executing a glide, that it will jerk the camera, which therefore changes the direction that you're flying based on the stick input. I've missed a lot of jumps that way. And that's just jank camera, where it like is trying to control like, okay, now you're looking this way in a way that like, oh, I didn't need to do that because I know I'm going over there. But because I hit the jump like this, you jerked the camera, and now my right input to try to head for the platform is sending me way off the direction of the platform, and I'm going to lose a life. But these are minor complaints to an otherwise like enjoyable experience. Like I'm still playing it for a reason in ways that like I'm not playing most of the other stuff in my rotation now.
Sure. I just wonder if I would even be able to get through 1 and then look down the barrel of 2 and 3 and just say, no, that's enough. Or would I rather just play 2 and have a better experience and then not worry about playing 1 or 3?
Yeah, do that.
Because I'll be burnt out by that.
2 is an improvement every way. It's got a better soundtrack. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure the new controls probably applied to all 3 games, but maybe not. Like things like, Chris, in Spyro 1, I can't remember. If you hit triangle, do you get the little boost at the end of your glide?
No.
I guess that would make sense that wouldn't be implemented even in the remake because that would sort of break some of the level design. But in the Spyro 2, yeah, when you glide, you hit triangle at the end and it gives you a little hop so you can get up to ledges and stuff.
Oh my God.
Which is a nice quality of life
that
update.
would be so nice.
So in that sense, Spyro 2 is definitely an improvement. Yeah, Nick, I would just skip the first one.
Yeah, don't do it.
Maybe I'll hop into that just because something light like an exploration platformer is a good palate cleanser frequently.
Yes.
Like I can't go around playing them all the time, but like between games, that sounds like a damn good time.
It
So
has
I
been.
platinumed Spyro 1 like years ago, like 2018 or 19. 2018, I think. And then I didn't play it for a while. And then was it early this year? Time flies. I think it was early this year. I did 2 and 3 back to back. And they were like 10-hour, maybe 12-hour platinums, like all in. So they were really pretty breezy experiences. I don't know if you'd be looking to 100% it. In my eyes, you don't play a game like that without 100%ing it. Like that's the point of playing it.
Yeah, to collect the things.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to collect all of them. And they're some of the easiest games to do it in. Why I liked platinuming them is because the trophy lists added a really nice layer of like true challenge. Like they're not overwhelmingly difficult by any means. There are much harder platinums out there, but it actually forced me to like some of the time trial things and like beating bosses with certain restrictions and stuff. So there was a layer of challenge that I really enjoyed. But if you're just collecting all the things in game, it's super breezy and they're fun. And this, dude, the soundtrack.
I mean, that and Crash had that sort of childlike bippity boppity kind of sound like that Grant Kirkhope would do. You know, sort of the I can't remember the composer's name that did all the Tim Burton movies, but
Danny
very much
Elfman.
that for video games.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Danny Elfman of video games. Like, yeah, just Oingo Boing going all over the place. Simpsons vibe, you know. It's just that it's kinetic, it's fun, you know, it's loose, it's joyful. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
There's a lot of generic video game music out there. Spyro has so many distinct moments where you're like, it's just a bug in your brain, but it's super percussive, which I like. It's not just like, okay, here's the same like 12 like sound samples. This is a band playing this whole thing, and you're hearing the fucking drums, and it's bombastic and big and goofy and fun. And yeah, that's probably the first, unless you count like the fucking, I don't know, Donkey Kong Game Over music. Like Spyro might be the first soundtrack that really I can remember loving. I mean, the Super Mario World soundtrack is, you know.
And you sicko, you only playing Pokemon on mute.
Well, I didn't only play it on mute, but like I said in the group
but you
chat,
don't have the nostalgia for the music. Like I play a song and
so
you're like,
good.
it takes me exactly to a screen in that game, and you just like, yeah, that sounds like Pokemon. So that's all.
The first game I have more nostalgia for, but by Gen 2, yeah, it was mostly, well, it was a product of like mostly playing that game when I wasn't supposed to. Like you're playing it in bed, or you're playing it like
Yeah, with the worm
you got
light.
grounded.
No, I understand why. I'm sad for you. That's
Yeah.
But a lot of it is also like, all right, I have played 1,000 hours of this game. I can only take so much. Dude, I was just thinking that actually when I was playing Fire Emblem, like the music is so good in Fire Emblem, and it has such a character that is distinct to Fire Emblem music. And I was really enjoying it in Path of Radiance, but it plays the exact same 14-second ditty every battle, and you can't skip the cutscenes in the older games. It's like every time you go into a battle, it's the exact fucking like super intense little ditty, and I'm just like, all right, I'm fucking over this 3 hours in. I'm over it. I cannot do 30 more hours of the same fucking battle theme every goddamn time I kill a goon. Like you get sick of it after a while.
Yeah, it's true.
You know?
The combat music in a lot of Japanese-made games, like it's great in small doses, and then by disc 3 of Final Fantasy VII, you're like, all right, still more fighting. Like I think I'm good. So I'm doing Spyro. I let Hades go, and not today, but next week maybe I want to do like a proper how much I love that game section, but I let that go, and I've been still doing the Mega Man X series playthrough, and today it's time to start X6. We will see. We could maybe talk about X5 a little bit, because Nick, I know you did a quick replay, zero track.
Yeah, not 100%. I did 7 of the 8 bosses and the levels and stuff, and I was playing on, like I said, playing on Rookie Hunter mode, so like the damage scaling is just completely wacky. Like I can survive everything, and I kill bosses in 5 hits.
Yeah, it's
so
playing
it's like,
for story.
yeah, it's not really playing the game. It's hardly even playing for story, because there's barely a story to begin with. But it's more just like just sort of seeing the level layout, seeing how it compares to prior entries, and getting a sense of that. It seems like my main takeaway from this game is like, wow, X4 did not sell well because they cheaped out hard on X5. There's like not nearly the level of attention to detail in this game. The in between areas where there was like FMV, like anime cutscenes in X4, there's nothing like that in this. There's, the generic badly written dialogue. Sigma literally written out he the worst. And yeah, it just feels a lot cheaper, and it still somehow even feels cheaper than like X1, where X1 had so much variety and depth and character where when you beat a level, it would affect another stage. So you would play Spark Mandrill and suddenly the lights are out.
Yeah.
But you don't get that in any of the other games. And that's like truly the worst thing about every other X game besides 1.
No, I agree. I think that there's some areas that it suffers and some areas that I'm like, oh, this is a really meaningful push forward for the series. Like, I know we laugh about like the plot in the X games is so thin, but this really is like a worthy culmination of everything they were doing for 4 games. Of like the confirmation that Zero is to X as Dr. Light, that Dr. Wily is to Dr. Light. We explicitly get like the Wily logo in the final stages. We get like Sigma alluding to the fact that he's working with Wily's AI in the same way that Dr. Light's AI has been helping X this whole time. You get to fight like a version of like the classic Mega Man enemy, like the Black Devil, which is such a fucking hard boss fight. All that stuff is great. Like, you get a branched timeline at the end of this game, depending on whether or not Zero survives. That in the timeline where Zero doesn't survive, X's memory gets altered, and he has no memory of Zero and refers to wanting to found Elysium, which is, I believe, exactly what he ends up doing in the Mega Man Zero series. So that's the way that goes. And if Zero lives, you branch in the direction of like the future X games. Anyway, it's very all that stuff is great. The soundtrack is amazing. It's a great fucking soundtrack. Like, there's so many good tracks in this. This is the second best boss theme behind Mega Man X1 for me, and it might honestly be just as good. It's so good. Like, they really took advantage of what they could do on the PlayStation 1 for this. Got way more electronic. Like, fucking Izzy Glow's stage is just so vibey and like rocking, and goddamn, like lots of good tracks. You get to like X and Zero getting to square off against each other finally, even though it's for like, again, in the X track, it's for pretty thin reasons. In the Zero track, it makes perfect sense because X is like, you are absorbing the virus and it's making you stronger. This is really concerning. We need to take you back for examination. And Zero's like, I don't do that. You don't tell me what to do. And they fight each other. The introduction also, like, this game completely changes the way that backtracking works, partially because of the Majora's Mask. Like, you have 16 hours until the colony hits thing. You have to clear stages and then go back. And because this is the first game that introduces multiple armors, you have to visit stages a number of different times and do that Metroid thing of taking stock of, okay, I see there's a capsule over there. It's behind a little wall. There's a low path underneath it, and there's some kind of device over there. Okay, and then when you beat Duff McWhalen and you come back and you have the goo shaver, and you're like, oh, this travels along paths. I can get in there now and get the armor piece, and going like, oh, how do I do those blocks? Oh, I have the Gaia armor now. I can move those blocks. Oh, I have the Falcon armor. I can fly up there. Is that right? Yeah, Falcon armor. Yeah, I can fly up there. That's great. Yeah, it's just sweet. A lot of that stuff is really cool. You have to go back multiple times once your time limit's off. It also, like, man, the RNG bullshit in this game is just so intense. Like, you can get all the colony parts or get all the parts to the laser and fire the laser, and it can still fucking fail. And you literally can't re-roll it. It's like re-rolling like every couple of seconds, every single time you're in any level. So when you finish the last level to get the last part, you are locked in on whether or not it's succeeding. Then you go do it again, getting the parts for the shuttle to go crash the shuttle into the colony. And you're still locked in, and you could just literally get the bad ending because Zero dies in orbit and have no fucking control over it. And I'm like, this sucks. Like, that part of this game is ass. And I was really fortunate in my X playthrough that the cannon was successful, and in my 0 playthrough that the shuttle was successful, because I was like, if I do a 0 playthrough and he fucking dies in the shuttle, I'm going to be so fucking pissed. And because you can switch between the characters in each level, again, another awesome improvement, you can collect all of X's armor parts as 0 because you can choose X or 0 for any level that you want. You also get to start with X's armor, his ultimate armor from Mega Man X4, because it continues directly after the events of that game, and it makes perfect fucking sense he would still have that armor. If you go in with the first level as X, 0 loses the Z Buster, which is no big loss, Nick. Like you said, if you go in with 0, X's ultimate armor gets destroyed from X4, and then you have to just be base form X for the rest of the game. Yeah, you get the black 0 armor for the first time in this game without using cheats, which is just sick. Like, changes the saber color to purple. X's ultimate armor in this game is so broken. Like, the Nova Strike, you literally just turn into like a speeding death machine flying across the screen, and you're completely invulnerable. So you can just cheese like every fucking boss for the whole rest of the game, like all the Maverick refights. Like, there's a lot that it does really well, in spite of the fact that it's definitely not like a top shelf X title. I was pleasantly surprised with what it was compared to my memories of it.
So did you play this with the Legacy Collection?
I did, and I'm not pleased at the fact that they retranslated all the names. That was one of my favorite parts.
I was just gonna say, like, it's fucking Duff McWhalen.
Yeah, I'm using
just regular old title whale now.
I hate it, and I love this. Is like the Guns N' Roses X game where like the localizers were like,
So
how
stupid.
fucking sick would it be if we change all of the Robot Masters names were like plays on different members of Guns N' Roses or different songs that Guns N' Roses
It
did.
literally wasn't even one of the translators' girlfriend was like a fan of Guns N' Roses, so to impress her, he like named them after all the stupid names.
That is
like,
even
that's all it is.
fucking better. That is amazing that you could just do that in the 2000s and no one would say anything. So I loaded up and they're like, yeah, here's Tidal Whale, and he's got hydrogen. I'm like, what? No, that's Duff McWhalen. That's Duff McWhalen. No, damn it.
They still keep the name of his shot Goo Shaver.
Oh my.
Izzy Glow. Slash Beast. No, that's from X4.
Yeah, Crescent Grizzly.
No.
Grizzly Slash.
Grizzly
I mean, at least
Slash. Axel Rose Red. God damn it. This was so good.
Matt T-Rex is the worst. And Axel the Red, there's a character in later games named Axel, so it's good that they changed that.
I love it. I was sad. I was like, this is bullshit.
Dude, this is like getting like an accurate translation in sub versus the dub. Like, why would you be mad that the game is being adequately brought to the West for the first time, accurately brought to the
Because
West?
nostalgia.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
want it to be like how it was, because in the X Collection on GameCube, it kept those names. As far as I remember, it kept those names. I think this is the first time
sure, yeah.
it's been changed in a West release.
Retconned.
Yeah, so that's sad. That was really sad. I was like, this is wrong. I also I know that some of the dialogue sucks, but some of the dialogue also doesn't suck, because the whole conceit is that Sigma big brains them into unintentionally releasing the Sigma virus all over the earth. And so like every Reploid basically is like suffering and is going to become a Maverick. And there's some really interesting dialogue with some of these folks where they're like, I literally don't have a choice. I'm so sorry. Like, you're just going to have to kill me. Like, I know we were colleagues, but like, you're going to have to kill me. Or like going to fight, the Pegasus, Spiral Pegasus with Zero. And he's like, I need to know what happened between you and the Colonel. Like, tell me the truth. And it's like, whoa, that's really cool. Like, that's a reference to X4. Or going to fight Volt Kraken. And X is literally like, I'm so sorry about Launch Octopus. That like he was homies with Launch Octopus and he quit being a Maverick hunter because Launch Octopus went Maverick and he died. I'm like, that's awesome. That's so cool. Like, they even sample a lot of the like tracks from Mega Man X in different places, like the intro cinematic for X5 using the Mega Man X epilogue theme to introduce it. I'm like, oh man, it gives me chills every time.
Nick, you jumped into this game like, how did you put it? As a content tourist?
Yeah.
This game wasn't for you.
No, it doesn't add anything that isn't done better in X1 and X4. And for me, it was more just like, what other ideas can they have in this format? And the answer was not many. A lot of the like auto scroll kind of levels or the gimmick levels, I feel like are done better in 2 and 4. In particular, I'm thinking of, I think it was Volt Kraken stage that started with the speeder bike. And if you don't get all the little energy orbs, then you don't open the door. That is like the optional thing. And like,
Yeah, it's
that's
the
just
upgrade.
tedious. The tidal whale start of the stage where you're just being auto scrolled behind, like you're underwater for one. And also you have this thing that's following you for the entire level until you get to like the boss area. And that kind of sucks. Stuff like that. Like, it doesn't really do anything for me. And the ability differences of like having the air dash in the beginning and like the double jump and like stuff like that just wasn't tickling me. The music's nice, the boss designs are cool, but it just feels like a cheap B-side to X4 in a lot of ways.
This game felt like a Mega Man joint. Like, this game is really fucking hard in the way that I think of like Mega Man 2 is hard. And they even aped Crash Man, what's the name of the stage? The laser stage, the infamous laser stage in Mega Man 2. They aped it for the first Zero Virus like final stage in this game. And that's just emblematic, I think, of like their whole approach to this one is that they are going to make it tough as nails. Some of it you're either going to need to like have the correct powers or be frame perfect, like this stupid fucking Volt Kraken air bike one where it's like you have to be perfect in all of your jumps. And it's not that the game is like janking, it's that I'm not playing it well enough. And that's not necessarily the most enjoyable feeling, but I respect it that they were like, we are going to make this tough as nails because of the fact that we are now explicitly threading the connection to the Mega Man universe, to Zero specifically, and uniting these timelines in a way we hadn't before. I respect the choice. And that does earn it a few points in my esteem of like really thematically making that make sense in terms of the difficulty.
Dude, I just saw some discourse online about what a modern Mega Man game should be or could be. And, because I'm kind of, I've only played a few of the Mega Man X games in like maybe the first or second Mega Man game. They're just not for me. Like the original series is like, I don't like games where it's, all right, memorize the pattern down to a T until you're good enough to like do it all consecutively. Like that's not really my jam. Mega Man X is a lot more like read and react, a way an action game should be. So going forward though, people are clamoring, why can't we get a good Mega Man game? The last few X games were pretty rough. Mighty Number 9 was bad for a lot of reasons, but there's just not a lot left to do. We had kind of postulated about what like a modern Metroid could be, and I thought like doing a roguelike bullet hell like Returnal but with a Metroid skin could be really fucking cool. But I saw someone bring up the idea that like Mega Man would be perfect for something like that.
Totally.
Dude, I am so in on that. Returnal is a cool fucking game, and you know how I am with my roguelikes. Like I haven't played one I haven't liked. It's punishing. So in that sense, it's like not really for me, but like the idea is there, and I could totally see that being a more accessible. I think it was Andy Cortez maybe who tweeted it, but he's like, "Give me that, but something fun and bright and exciting instead of the like typical modern like doom and gloom that is most hard video games these days."
Yeah, give it that 90s vibe with the big boots, like it just doesn't look right, I'd
be so into that. That'd be so cool.
This exists already though, and it's called 30XX. And I know that it's not like a proper Mega Man game, but it is a roguelike that is literally Mega Man X.
2D, but not the what EJ is talking about. Like he wants Returnal like in 3D, like a 3D bullet hell shooter, whereas 30XX is more like a Mega Man X game, but roguelite,
Yeah, I just don't ever see like them going 3D again. Maybe give us like a proper Mega Man Legends 3, like that'd be fucking sick. Those games are so cool, man. Talk about a game diary.
Or another Battle Network. Yeah,
God, like give us Command Mission 2. Like, God, I loved that game, Mega Man X Command Mission. That game fucks. Also, I don't know if it really does, but boy, kid me loved it.
Or ZX3, ZX2? Give Inti Creates another go at the Zero series.
Yeah, they're on, I think it would be number 3. Yeah, I don't know. It's just hard. Like, where's the niche for this type of game?
And to justify the budget, I mean, yeah, Capcom, they're doing a lot of these remakes, but there's less, I don't know, there's a lower ceiling for a 2D remake compared to the 3D remakes that they've been doing with Resident Evil. And like they are making big money with Resident Evil, Street Fighter, and Monster Hunter. But where does Mega Man fit into that? And the answer is they don't know, because clearly if they knew, they would have done something by now. They're just doing legacy collections, which is nice.
Well, how did
available still?
How did Mega Man 11 sell?
Mega Man 11 sold okay.
I'm gonna look it up.
But that was like a little while ago, right? Was that 2018?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a bit. Oh boy. Let's see. As of,
I think it met expectations, but it obviously didn't blow anyone out of the water.
1.7 million copies worldwide as of June 2023. Yikes.
That sounds okay for Mega Man. Like Mega Man has never been the big seller.
Oh, it is the best-selling entry.
There you go.
Wow.
The Metroid fan in me kind of got some warm fuzzies that something as like well reputed as Mega Man is like trawling for 1.7 units after like a 5-year sales lifespan.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, modern Mega Man.
Would love to see it come back, and I would love it if they went either of the obvious ways. Like if they did a Mega Man X in the style of Returnal, I think that would be awesome. And if they did like a straight up Mega Man in the style of Ratchet and Clank, I think that would be wicked.
Interesting.
It's just, does Capcom want to do that? Did they want to put that level of budget into something that they have only seen the returns of like 1.7 million? Like that sounds pretty expensive for a not surefire thing, but it is like one of their icons, like they could elevate it higher. They could make it a big deal. They saw that success with Monster Hunter. Like World is their best-selling game from a series that was only big in Japan, and now they have worldwide success with it. So, I mean, it's possible, but
something that I want to touch on before we jump to the Nintendo Switch TSA leaks, which I know, Chris, you're going to want to dive into here. But I had kind of an interesting experience this week, all week, really. You know how I've been sort of flipping video game things and garage selling and yada, 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 right? So I've spent a lot of time offloading to local game stores the things that I just can't really sell, sort of PS2 chaff and Xbox 360 odds and ends, right? Things that they'll take, but that don't make sense to try and eBay, and God forbid I'm not going to open a fucking Amazon store or something, right? I'm not going to go too crazy. This is just sort of a side hustle as I get back into, I say this with air quotes, back into collecting, right?
Get the spray bottle.
Yeah. Dude, it's not so much that I'm getting back into collecting, like the compulsive, like buying things because somebody else told me they're good, or buying things that might be fun one day. Like I'm very much like sticking to what I know. But like, for example, I got out all my games out of storage and I cleaned everything up really well. Cleaned all the carts, cleaned all the cases, because I got my retro setup going in the closet again, like I said earlier, right? So I just wanted everything to be clean. I went through and bought some manuals for like GameCube games that didn't have manuals, etc. Just like kind of getting things up to standards, whatever. So I've been spending some time flipping and trying to buy certain things, a lot of upgrades mostly to games I already own. But because of that, I've been spending time in game stores for the first time in a while. And there's one store down here in particular where I bought Zelda. By the way, I did check for Zelda controllers when I went in there this week. They were predictably gone. If I'd known you guys were looking, dude, last time I was in there, dude, they had literally a fucking wall of them. How many of those were pre-orders? I don't know, but
I bought a standard pro anyway. The ship sailed. I got impatient, but I appreciate you.
So anyway, I took a bunch of stuff in there, ended up with like $200 in store credit. They were really helpful. Like they were really clear about like what we take, what we don't take. They offer a really fair cash price, which is pretty rare, but they're very much like by the book business, right? Like here's what we offer, the percentages, here's what we're looking for, here's what we buy. Like they had a decent selection of the sort of rare stuff in the glass cases, and so my goal was to kind of like, well, they don't have everything I want. I'll buy something to basically just flip and just make a couple $100, just use up all that Xbox 360 trade, because there's not it really, the only things on my list right now, guys, are really expensive things. I want Gotcha Force and I want Fire Emblem. Like, because I have most of the things that I've played, right? So now it's just a matter of experimenting and exploring new titles and adding those to the collection outside of the Console Crusade Top 100, which I do want to actively collect all those games, even the ones I haven't played. But there's not a lot on my list. So I said, okay, well, I'll see. I'll keep the trade and come back. And I went back a few more times. Couldn't find anything. There's a new game store in Eugene that I stumbled across. They've only been around for like 6 months. They are tucked away in a pretty bad location in a good part of town. They're trying to like do things right, but they've been really struggling, I guess. I went in and I talked to the kid who's like running the place, and I traded him a few things, and we got to chatting, and he seemed really cool. He worked out a really good deal with me on a couple of Pokemon games that I bought for my brother that he was looking for, like wiggle room on prices. And some of the prices were spot on, and then he worked with me. Some of the prices are way over the top. And that is what it is, right? That's retail for you. But I got a really good deal on Pokemon Emerald and a Pokemon White, I think, is what my brother wanted. And he worked with me, and I traded him a couple things, and it was a really cool experience. I went back, traded in a few more things. I bought a copy of Bubble Bobble on the NES.
Nice.
It is one of those games that I had never played, but Nick, actually, when we went to the Retro Gaming Expo, I remember talking to my uncle, my late uncle, who was like, he's not much of a gamer at all. Like, he played Tiger Woods and pinball. When I told him I was going to the Retro Gaming Expo, he's like, you have to get Bubble Bobble. It's the best fucking game on the NES.
Oh,
and
that's
so,
great.
It's an arcade port, yeah.
Right. I had never played it. So I picked up a really clean copy of that and played that this week. Not what I expected. Like, I was expecting like I don't know, probably some like version of Tetris or like.
Oh, that's Puzzle Bobble, dude.
What do I know?
You know nothing.
So anyway, I picked that up, and again, same guy working. We had a good conversation about like our collections and sort of what we're into these days. And he had a similar story of like, hey, I'm not really collecting the way I used to be. It's not like compulsive anymore. It's about curating and having something that, means something and you have all these memories with. Collecting has evolved for us. It was a good conversation. On my way out, I see a copy of Pokemon Sapphire, which I have, but mine is labelless. And I said, hey, if I came in and tried to trade up to this copy of Sapphire, how much would you charge me? And he's like, $10. He's like, we move whether they have labels or not. If it's an authentic copy, like, it's not going to cost me anything. So he's like, $10. Fucking cool. I'll be back tomorrow. So I went back in yesterday, guys. And I say all this to preface this story and my frustration. I go in, I have a PS2 and a bunch of games that I'm not going to be able to move comfortably. It's just a bunch of crap, right? Fucking take it in. If he gives me $30, I'll be happy, right? So I go in, he looks at it, he's like, honestly, man, I can't really take this. And I was like, yeah, no worries. I get it. Like, PS2 is not a hot commodity, and it's a lot of chaff, right? So then I said, all right, well, here's my copy of Sapphire. Let's just do the swap or whatever. And he was like, yeah, honestly, man, like, I kind of gave you the wrong number yesterday. And I was like, oh? He's like, yeah, I can offer you like $40 for it maybe if you were going to buy the other one. Meanwhile, that game's marked at $85, right? No, like, I'm not going to pay $45 to upgrade my labelless copy of Pokemon Sapphire, right? He's like, well, if you throw in all the PlayStation stuff, it was a console, 2 controllers, like 20 games. He's like, and Sapphire, we'll just straight across trade. No, I'm good. So I go in, and I understand it's a business, guys. I get it. They have to make their money. But the idea that like he was trying to fucking squeeze me, like, we had talked, we had essentially made a deal. I said, I'll be back tomorrow for the 3rd time this week, right? And it was all good. And I came in, and now he's trying to squeeze me so we can save a few bucks on this PS2 lot that he said he didn't want, right? And now he's like, well, if we just trade everything, if I could just completely bend you over backwards and fuck you, then we can make the deal. I clammed up and said, nope, I'm good. I packed up, I left. He apologized, and I just ignored him and walked out. And I was so fucking bothered by this. Listen, these fucking game stores, it is so hard to operate in this space these days. And game stores come and go like new restaurants. Like, every 2 years, shit is opening up, something is closing down. All you hear about is how bad things are. It's so hard to get inventory. People aren't buying the X, Y, and Z anymore. It's all moving on to eBay and all this stuff. And so in a hobby, in an industry where if you're into specifically retro stuff, the entire industry is basically hinged on like-minded collectors and these relationships that you form with people, right? To go into this store and presumably, I think I'm making one of these relationships, right? Where like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Like you're gonna get repeat business from me, right? And for him to like be totally scummy, go back on his word, and then try to squeeze me to get a cheaper bundle on this fucking lot of PS2 games, you know, like we saw the opportunity and was like, okay, I can fuck this guy. And I was like, bro, you lost a customer for life. Like that's straight up. I'll never go back to that game store. I will never recommend that game store, especially given some of the other shops in town, like that first place I mentioned, Video Game Headquarters. Much more by the book. They're fair. Here's how things work. And that's all good, right? It was a frustrating thing that I experienced this week. And, you know, I know that retro video games are popping off right now, but it is so fucking hard to keep a brick and mortar alive for really anything, but especially video games because of how the market has gone. Like it is so hard. And you would think, you would not be trying to squeeze customers who are giving you repeat business.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not how you build relationships. It's not how you do business. You will be out of business within 6 months if this is how you treat everybody. Like, good luck running your business just like ripping off tweakers, right? Who robbed their neighbor. Like, if that's how you're going to operate, like, good luck. Like, you're not going to be around very long. You know what I did pick up at the other shop, though, was I used all my trade-in and I bought a minty Game Boy player with the disc, with the case and manual, which is all I wanted. And they're like, well, I can't just sell you the case and manual. And I was like, that's okay. I'll just take the whole thing and keep the case and manual and sell everything else, and that'll be fine.
Yeah, I've got mine's complete in box.
You got the box?
Yeah, I got everything.
You kept the box?
Oh, sorry. Case. Whatever. Case. No, I don't have the box. Case, manual. It is as yours is. I've got the case, I've got the disc, I got the manual, I have the player.
Yeah, I just wanted that case and manual because I've got the player and the disc, but I have some flimsy little third-party case for the disc because that's just how I found it whenever I picked it up. So anyway.
EJ, we may have to, and I just want to preface this by saying I cannot guarantee you that I will sell you a single thing in any of the boxes, but like the next time I'm in Portland, if you come up and you come to Nana's, and you help me get all these fucking boxes out of storage, like we can go through my collection and I can show you what I have in my collection. And if there's something that you're like, I need to have this, and I'm like, I could part with this, like we could maybe make a deal. I've got some weird stuff. I've got some really weird stuff in there, that you may care about or you may not. I don't know. It may give you hives how it's all stored, but
oh, I have no doubt that I will have a fucking meltdown. And I'm like, Chris, do you realize how much value is sitting in this rat poop in this fucking attic?
No, it's all in sealed tubs. It is not in fucking cardboard boxes, my friend. Like,
okay. Yeah, I'm down. And at the very least, we'll be able to like bust out some retro consoles and get down. So
I don't even know everything I have at this point. It's been 4 years since I boxed it up.
Well, it'll be a surprise for both of us then, won't it?
Thankfully, Oregon's not a very humid place, and it's in Nana's attic, which is like pretty solidly like temperature controlled. So I don't have any concerns about mildew. I don't have any concerns about like moisture. Like I know it's fine.
Dude, I've thought about this. I would love, again, it's damn near impossible. I would love to run and operate a retro video game store and just have a small little boutique shop and just hang out and talk games, and that'd be so much fun. It'd be an incredible amount of work, and a lot of collectors think that way, and a lot of collectors open stores, and, you know, surprise, it ends up being a commitment way larger than they had anticipated. But, man, it'd be a lot of fun, you know, just have a local shop.
Sounds like a retirement project.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, something to throw away money on.
Console Crusade.
Dude, I literally thought about that. It's some pie in the sky world where I open a game store, Console Crusade is the fucking name, bro.
Yeah.
Let's build a brand, boys. Anyway, thanks for letting me rant about that. That was my experience this week. And it was just disheartening, you know, especially when I got out of collecting, the community, like, and I'm sure the community is still great in its pockets, but like when I got out of collecting, let's see, I mean, I sold my collection in 2020, but I would say my collecting peaked in 2015, and then it was a pretty precipitous taper from there, Nick, after we were at the expo. I slowed down pretty good after that. prices were going crazy, but like video games as a commodity and as an investment, like it wasn't quite there yet. So you still had this underground community of like collectors collecting for the love of it. And now, as I talked about a few weeks ago, it's been infiltrated by resellers, and it has just sort of mucked up the market. And so, yeah, you go into some of these places and it's like, oh, I started this store because I thought I could make a quick buck, basically, you know, kind of a bummer place for things to be in this day and age. And again, as I talked about a few weeks ago, like you can't really collect video games without also being a reseller now. And so it's just become this sort of kind of ugly approximation of what a really cool hobby used to be. Anyway, last thing on our list today here, fellas. Chris, you were telling us about a Switch successor console leak that involved some TSA fuckery. Sort of break this down for us, and then Nick, you can kind of chime in with what you know, and then we can just sort of postulate about what this next console may or may not be.
So I think that this was on a subreddit that this guy initially posted, and he sort of prefaced the post by saying like, I wasn't really sure where to put this, but I figured like this would be as good a place as any to put it. The guy like purported to be a TSA agent. He said he was doing a bag check and had to screen an electronic device that had alarmed the machine alarmed the X-ray for some reason, and it was in like a metal like Pelican case, and the guy asked for a private screening, so they took him to the private screening room. He opened up the case. He said it looked like about like 4 times bigger than a modem, this like body, and then there was a controller that had like pretty standard looking face buttons, as well as, and this was the part of the leak that people have grabbed onto, scroll wheels where the like bumpers would be on the left and right. He conducted screening on it, and it alarmed the machine in screening. I have to be like really vague, because if I use like specific terms, I guess technically speaking, that could be like not good for me as a former TSA agent. So anyway, it alarmed.
Don't do that.
This is his story. It alarmed the machine in testing, which meant that he had to do a bag check and the guy had to get a pat down. And in screening through the guy's bag, there were business cards that indicated he was with Nintendo Research and Development. So the guy's like pretty sure that what he was looking at, well, the internet's pretty sure that what he was looking at is a dev kit for the Switch successor. The guy later posted his badge as proof of employment with the numbers covered up, obviously. Nick, I know you said like, oh man, this looks fake as fuck. It is 100% a TSA badge. That is what they look like. Like, that is exactly what they look like. I believe this story 100%, and I will tell you why. Number one, the way that he described the screening processes for all of this is exactly what the standard operating procedure for this is. Like down to, and this is him saying it, not me. So like, you know, US government, go after this fucking guy on Reddit, not me. That they can request a private screening. You're required to give it to them. You go into the other room. If something alarms, that goes to another level of security, which means that they're getting like the full everything with the pat down and the bag check. So that is exactly SOP, TSA SOP. I had something incredibly fucking similar happen to me when I was working for TSA in Portland. That I was working on bag check, and I had like somebody flag the bag, and I look on the screen cap of the X-ray, and it's a bunch of like shoes with like wires running through them, which is obviously sketch as fuck. And so I like open the duffel, and it's all like sealed black plastic bags in the duffel. And the guy's like, I'd like to request a private screening. I'm like, okay. So I grab somebody, and we go back into the other room, and he's like, hey, I'm with Nike. He showed me his Nike credentials. He's like, everything's fine. These cannot be seen in public. These are prototypes for self-lacing shoes. I'm taking them to the East Coast to do a photo shoot with Kevin Durant. And I open up each of the bags, and sure enough, like Nike branded with like the little self-lacing button that would tighten the laces to fit the foot and then stop. And I did all the screening and everything. And so I was like, this is like exactly what this guy experienced, this random like schmuck at whatever airport he happened to be at. Screening this. And so I absolutely believe the veracity of this. Like, I think this is totally accurate. I think that this is unintentionally like the biggest leak that has happened with regards to the Switch successor, because of the fact that he had eyes on a machine that, like I said, based on my own experience, there's no way that someone who doesn't work for TSA could have that degree of specificity and also have a shot of a TSA badge that is literally a TSA badge. So I think this is 100% true. I'm super interested as to what that means with like the scroll bars on the shoulder buttons. I know that in the very early Switch patents that came out, we knew that was something Nintendo was looking at. I say this is a more significant leak than some of the like other patent stuff that just came out like today or yesterday with regards to like smartphone integration, because who knows if that's actually something that they're looking at with this console or if that's just tech that they're kind of kicking the tires on. Because we know the scroll wheels were in the NX leaks with the patent specs, and then that didn't come to fruition until now, presumably. So damn, if true, and again, I think it is, this means a lot of things. It means it's a proper home console. It's not a hybrid console. It means that they're playing with the scroll bar tech on the shoulders. And it means that we are as close as we expected to an announcement on this console, if they're getting dev kits out all over the place. What do you think, fellas?
Yes, he describes the TSA screening procedures, which you can Google and find on TSA's website. And he did share a badge, which was a very, very close-up shot of a badge on a blue shirt, which, again, a Google search shows you 9 million versions of that. It is
plausible.
In line with what you would expect. Plausible, exactly. It is one guy making up a story, essentially, and we've seen a lot of similar hoaxes of someone who claims to be in the know. And
no, I'm telling you.
I mean, even lately, wait, what do we? This is totally not the same thing, but like Chris in the NBA, I don't know if you were aware of the NBA referee burner controversy that happened.
Yeah.
Just an elaborate ruse by a fucking fan taking the piss, and it went so far and was so elaborately done that like the NBA actually had to investigate and pull him off of the finals. And it was years in the making, you know, and it's just like ultimate NBA troll set up this elaborate burner account that didn't actually belong to an NBA referee. By all indications, you're like, how could it not be real? Like, he only responds to tweets about the particular ref who we assume is actually operating the account. He only follows like his own wife and her, the school she works at. And the tweets go back like 6 years or something, right? Just a troll who's been doing this for 6 years that finally came to fruition. So anyway, this is not even elaborate.
I get that. And yes, you can access the basic screening procedures for TSA, but you cannot access publicly, but you cannot access the level of detail like that. You cannot find online what is going to happen if your bag alarms, because if they put that information online, that's how people learn how to circumvent the security measures. Like it's kept internal for a reason.
Yeah, but people can just work at TSA and make up lies on the internet too.
That's
I know.
true.
I am aware of that they can. This is one of the more credible instances, again, because of the fact that I had something very specific happen with another major corporation that they're like, we cannot have this screened in the public eye because it could get photographed. That could make its way online. That could be really bad for us. We're not ready for that. Clearly, they are slow walking this console reveal until they are damned well ready for it. It could be very bad for them that gets photographed. I don't send rumors and leaks and stuff to y'all as podcast fodder unless I'm like, this, honest to God, is just too many specific things all happening that are too close to potentially being real. If it ends up being a host, I'll be like, you got me. That's like, clearly you know somebody who works for TSA, or you work for TSA and you're just, as you said, EJ, taking the piss. But I just don't know what incentive anybody could necessarily have to do that. I don't know. Like, I believe it.
You remember the NX leaks with the elaborate oval and the fucking...
The Grinch.
Oh, that looked fake as hell. Like, come on. Like, we didn't.
But it was
look at that
based
and
on
go,
a patent that Nintendo had filed. So,
which is why
the
it's
same patent
too,
this thing is.
Which is why it's too conspicuous. Like, it's just like, no, like, it's obvious. It's obviously a shop. Obviously, that was never the thing. Like, we knew that. I knew that. Like, no.
I don't know. Pretty good. Anyway, I understand why you're so biased in this instance.
Informed.
Yeah, you've experienced something similar, which is exactly the kind of people that are being targeted, right? The niche TSA Nintendo fans.
Yeah, that's the play.
They'll confirm it for me. Anyway, Nick, let's pretend this is true. It would make sense. They are obviously developing the successor to the Switch, whatever that may be. Let's just start with the scroll wheels, okay? What are your thoughts on what this might be and what they could be doing?
It'd be a gimmick that would barely get used for like one game.
1,000%. Probably.
I don't know. At best, it'd be used in like racing games as like a replacement to the analog triggers that they already did with the GameCube but haven't gone back to, because I don't know, maybe it's like too expensive, but for some reason a wheel would not be more expensive. I don't get the logic. You'd have to show me the software that goes with the hardware for me to be excited about the prospect of gimmick hardware at this point.
Nintendo's absolute insistence on always doing something, I don't want to use the word innovative. In their mind, innovative.
Sure.
But they're always trying to do something different.
When it hits, but when it doesn't, it's just the IR sensor on the right Joy-Con. Like, you forget it's even there, and it's not useful, and it's just making the whole thing more expensive. But like, the DS would not be a huge megaton hit if it didn't have the two screens and the touchscreen on the bottom. So they've had a shaky track record with that, I guess you could say.
Well, and then you look at something like the Wii, and like that gimmick hit, and they sold 1 million units. They were so invested in the gimmick that they were less focused on making great games, and they pushed away a lot of third-party developers, and it led to this massive lull. And I know the Wii U had its own set of drawbacks, right, that led to some of those pitfalls, but like it led to a really dark decade for Nintendo, to the point where people were like, should they sell their IP and just become a developer?
No one actually thought that unless they were idiots, but I will, just to touch on the scroll wheel, I do think that it's a more interesting sort of wrinkle as far as a method of input, because it is a used method of input already in a different form with scroll wheels on mice and computer gaming. But I don't know, does Nintendo have they have no idea what's going on with other consoles. I don't believe they know what people are even using scroll wheels on computers for. So it'd be interesting to see that, I guess. Like what's the thing you use your scroll wheel the most for in video games? It's like switching between weapons. I mean, it's not even used for anything paramount.
You don't.
In a video game. It's just to move a web page up and down is your number one reason to use the scroll wheel.
Right. That's exactly it.
But it's still better than an IR sensor on the bottom of a Joy-Con, or even gyro control, which is like really cool. People really like, and when it's not there, people complain about it. But what other modes of input do you really need? There's already 12 fucking buttons on these things, 2 analog sticks. We don't need more buttons. It's like overwhelming enough as it is. If you try to like introduce someone to video gaming, they don't want to have that many buttons to mess around with. It's just the true sickos like us that like consider, oh man, if I had back paddles, then I could jump and strafe and like aim all at the same time, and I wouldn't have to take my thumb off the stick.
Hey, that's me.
Yeah, can I just like, I think we're thinking about this the wrong way. I think we should be extremely fucking grateful that this is the gimmick, as opposed to something bigger and stupider that could just lose them third-party developers again. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, they solved that issue with the Wii U. I mean, the Wii U had all the buttons that you would need for third-party games, and they recognized that was a big hurdle between the Wii and the 360 and PS3 as far as getting third-party developers on board. Is like the method of control is so important to have a uniform-ish way to translate these games between different platforms.
right.
So they've already got that figured out. They've solved that. I don't think they're gonna backtrack that heavily. Like, it would truly be dick-steppingly bad if they did that.
Yeah, look, I mean, I know you want to think that, but if we've learned anything from Nintendo, it's if you think they're going to zig, they're going to zag. And yes, the Wii U had like proper buttons.
No, they're not going to zag in that way. Like, they're not that short-sighted. EJ, clip this if it ever happens.
The Wii U also had a fucking tablet controller that no one developed anything for. It was literally dead weight.
The PS4 had a touch screen or a little touchpad in between its buttons that nobody did anything with either.
And the touchpad was extremely useful for mapping buttons in a lot of games. Like,
it was extremely useful for have a big select button, and that was it.
Yeah, you can swipe directional input. In God of War Ragnarok, I had every single direction of swipe set to something, and it was all fucking useful.
Yeah, and you could make Mario Maker levels on the Wii U gamepad. It was great for that one game.
For a first-party game, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Is that like if you... I am grateful that this is a really minor gimmick and that they are just making a proper home console that, according to some other leaks, is on par with like a PlayStation 4, Xbox One, which is great. I don't need it to be stronger than that. I don't need a fucking PS5 ass Nintendo so I can see Mario with ray tracing. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, it'll be great that it'll be graphically good. And it'll look a lot better.
Imagine new Pokemon Snap 2 with the scroll wheel for zooming in and out.
See, and that's just it. Like, you could do some fun stuff with it, and then other developers can ignore it and just use the click function and the back triggers, and they will not have to worry about it. I think it's great news that it's not another big fucking gimmick.
I agree, as long as it does not negatively impact the already used function of a left and right bumper. Like, if they can do the thing that Logitech Mice does, where you can have the free spin or like lock it down, so if it's not used, I can just manually do that, then great. But if it's just always at risk of spinning when I'm trying to just treat it as an RB, like, that's gonna be bad. So
It's going to be
that's
terrible.
part of the reason why I don't believe that. I don't think it's ergonomically feasible for it to do both. Like, it wouldn't be able to do double duty. They would need to have a separate button, and then it gets really cramped up there, and then it gets really annoying. And that is believable from Nintendo to an extent, but I don't think that any of their designs have been less than elegant in a way. Like, the 3DS has its problems, but like visually, conceptually even, it should just work. It's just that the technology for the circle pad is bad. But they locked themselves into that because they had to stick with the clamshell design. I don't think they would do that with this, but I also don't believe this leak because I don't think their next console is going to be strictly a console. I think it's still going to be a portable hybrid.
Oh, I don't think that at all. And I think I said that on this podcast that I'm like, we need to savor the Switch days. I seriously doubt it's gonna do that. They may do some cross-platform releases like Princess Peach and the Ouija 2 remake will probably be on both handhelds, both consoles, but I don't think that.
Yeah, I guess if they did, they could keep backwards compatibility with 99.9% of their catalog.
Absolutely.
If they had it strictly on the TV, like there's very, very, very few examples of games that are only playable in handheld, and those are like not first party, and they're mostly mobile ports, so they do not matter. So I would be fine with that, honestly, if they can reduce the cost by not having to include a handheld screen and battery and all this kind of stuff to like make this idea work. That would be fine for me. I don't know if that would see the same mass market success. Because, I mean, the Switch Lite did not do as well as I thought it would when that was announced. Like, oh, a cheaper version of the Switch, but it doesn't dock to the TV. Like, that makes sense. They could sell that and do gangbusters. But the Switch OLED has sold better than the Switch Lite has, which is kind of interesting.
They
and
want
I don't
the
think
home console.
Nintendo would have foreseen that.
People
yeah,
want
they
the
want a
home
more expensive
console.
thing, a nicer thing. Yeah.
Wait, what did the Switch
Also-
Lite sell?
The OLED also is only better than the original Switch in that it has a better handheld functionality. So what does that mean? Does that mean they want to spend more money on a nicer thing? Or does it mean people are playing handheld more? Like, I'm sure they have the metrics on with the use case. I remember seeing that it was largely 50-50. Like, people playing handheld, people playing on TV, and who spends more time doing what. Like, they've shared a little bit of that information, but not in too terribly great detail as far as like demographics and everything goes.
Yeah, I don't understand why Nintendo insists on doing this. It's like, just keep doing what you're doing. It's working. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. No pun intended, okay? Like, just make good games. Nintendo has been at their absolute best when they're just focused on making quality games. We know what a console should be. We know what a controller should be. You don't have to change that, okay? Just make some competent hardware going into this fucking new decade and keep making good games. This is not rocket science, you know? And I'm sure that there is diminishing returns. Like, people don't want to buy a new video game console every 4 years the way that they did back when you were like making these massive jumps. People who have their Switches now, they're going to keep those Switches until their kids are too old to play video games anymore. And you're going to have to wait till next decade when the cycle fucking resets before there's another like gangbuster hit. I'd be okay with a console only, Nick, like you said, but like, it needs to be PS4 level console that is only a console would be such a failure. Again, your league's behind the competition. Third-party ports are going to be a fucking pain in the ass. And the thing that makes the Switch so great is the functionality between handheld and television. So if you're going to do a console only, you need to do it properly. And if you're going to do a handheld, then you need to just follow the blueprint that you've already laid out with the Switch and that the PC handheld market is starting to dive into. Like, pick a lane.
I would expect it would be about as powerful as like a Xbox One X, because they could probably get away with doing that for $300. And I think the price point is that's the thing they want to focus on, is how expensive it is. The people will come for the first party support. We know that. And if they can still get third party, like if they can make the porting process tenable, then by all means, that's great. But that is not their main focus. Like, the first party titles are the main focus.
And the price point, like you said, like that $300 price tag on the Switch that is why it is selling so well, is that people are like, well, my kids want to play some new games. Everybody likes Nintendo. They probably played a Nintendo game at some point, and they're like, I'm not going to pay $500 for my 8-year-old to play PlayStation 5. We're getting a Switch or a Switch Lite.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking at how the One S or the Series S is priced versus the One X, and how that kind of shakes out performance per dollar, I think Xbox is taking a loss on the Series S, and there's still a little bit of consternation as far as developers having trouble getting their games running as well on the Series S and the Series X, because Xbox wants every game to be on every Xbox Series console, which makes sense, but they split the difference a little bit too far, perhaps. So some developers have trouble with that. But I mean, if they're only targeting one SKU with the Nintendo future console, then if it's that locked in, the only strange thing becomes, okay, this is the NVIDIA mobile chip, because they still have a long contract going with NVIDIA. So how that sort of works, and the translation layers and the processing between, I mean, EJ, I'm sure you've watched similar videos through like MVG talking about how the next generations of NVIDIA mobile architecture is different enough that it would be kind of difficult for them to have a just completely native backwards compatibility with the Switch. But I think they really do need to keep that software compatibility to maintain confidence between the consumer and Nintendo, to say, hey, we know that your digital libraries are growing. We do not have the same kind of 50-50 split, 60-40, 70-30 split that the other console manufacturers have, but we want to keep growing in that direction because it's more lucrative for us. How do we maintain that trust and say, hey, you bought those games and you can still play those games, because they have to be playable in order for that backwards compatibility and that software library to carry forward. It takes a lot of work if they're doing that for every single software title. I don't think they want to do that. They want to have just a one-size-fits-all approach. So I don't know how that works for Nintendo. If they can do that, that would be great. I don't really care too much. I mean, it'd be nice if it came with automatic improvements. If like I could play Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom and it had a better resolution, if it had a better frame rate on the new console, that would be awesome. I don't expect that. I don't have that. It'd be nice if it played at all. But I also still have my Switch, and it's easy. It's not as cumbersome as keeping a Wii U around, right? The Wii U is a lot bulkier. It's harder to get set up and like start it. Yeah, but don't. I mean,
we're so lazy. We're so spoiled nowadays.
EJ, people are so lazy. They don't want to buy physical games because they don't want to switch out a CD or a cartridge. They just want to click on the thing and start it up. That little thing is enough for people to say, hey, I will forego all my rights as an owner of this software just because I want to hit the title and it's pop up. So yes, people are that lazy.
I think we're going to be lucky if this is backwards compatible.
They'd have to justify it. It would have to be that much better for it to matter.
Well, I know. That's their problem, they're
though.
Thinking, well, it's all of our problems. And it's the same way that Nintendo's lack of like continuity with their infrastructure outside of the Nintendo account, which is, surprise, surprise, the only thing they have said publicly about this console is that it's going to have Nintendo account support.
Right, for that continuity.
Yeah, I expect nothing. Like the fact that I couldn't bring my digital library from the Wii U to the Switch is stupid. The fact that I couldn't bring the fact that I'm probably not going to be able to bring a lot of my digital library from the Switch to the next console is stupid. Like I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing how they will make that backwards compatibility happen. And I don't think that they think they need to. I think that they see these as like distinct devices with distinct things. And if it becomes another matter of like, here comes the port machine where we're going to start bringing Switch games over to the NX2, like people are going to get really fucking tired of that. Like, it was one thing on the Wii U because it's a failed console, but the Switch is a massive success. Sure. And if they're like, okay, you know, Tears of the Kingdom, sure, like bring it over, like for sure, bring it over, do a deluxe edition, whatever, like bring it over. But if it's like, okay, here's Pikmin 4 coming over. Okay, here's Super Mario Odyssey coming over, and it just like
Link's Awakening DX with a good frame rate.
Link's Awakening NX.
Oh, that is good, but also depressing.
Sony basically just looked at the PS4 and said, what if we dialed this to 11, sold it for $500, and give you free PS5 versions for almost all of these games that you
I know.
Already own? It hasn't hurt their fucking sales.
And Microsoft has a deep backwards compatibility library now. Nintendo is light years behind these other developers, which is exactly why I'm like, if there's any backwards compatibility, it's going to be some serious jank. It's going to be obtuse. It's not going to work well. This is what I expect. Is that I will continue to play my Switch games on my Switch until that is no longer supported with any like additional, you know, eShop, like Switch eShop closing 2028. Like
I just want a Switch Pro, man.
I know. I know, but it's
bunch of spoiled 30-year-olds we are.
Well, is it spoiled or is it expecting like the going market minimum? Yeah, like you said, for what these new machines should be able to do.
It all just comes down to price point for me. Like if they're charging $500, then I would expect $500 of, you know, like that puts it in that echelon. But if it's still, hey, this is a $250, this is a $350 device, then that changes the math for me, I guess. I don't know.
To me, price just doesn't matter. And I know it does to the wider market, I guess. But like, this is a console you're going to be playing for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It doesn't matter to me if it's $300 and $500. I can wait another month or 2 months to buy it if I'm like that strapped. Like for something that you are not going to buy again, or in the Switch's case, we might be looking at almost a decade by the time the next Nintendo console comes out. The price doesn't really matter that much.
Bro, how many Switches have you bought, EJ?
I bought launch Switch. I bought better battery Switch. I bought OLED Switch. I bought second OLED Switch when the first one had a dead fan. And then I bought Sarah the Animal Crossing Switch. And
you bought the Switch Lite, too.
We had a Switch Lite for a while.
Oh, buddy.
No, but I just mean, like, if you look at a video game console as an investment, that $200 difference is, you know, you're making that back over 6 years in perceived value, you know, if you
enjoyment.
That's EJ's take. Here's Chris's take, which I think is a little more reflective of the overall market. I bought an OLED Switch the day that it was released because it was $300 or $350. If they had priced that at $400 or $450, I would not have bought that machine. I bought a Switch at launch because it was $300. I waited years to buy a PlayStation 5 because that extra $200 was a substantially bigger piece of my monthly income that I had to wait until I was able to do with fiscal responsibility. That is the state of the economy. That is the state of the average American consumer, lower middle class. It does matter. Now, if it comes at the cost of backwards compatibility, I'm gonna feel some kind of way about it because it's just embarrassing that they're behind this. But if it's $300, no backwards compatibility, I'm like, okay, I'm still buying that machine day one.
And also, that this is without even mentioning that you know that the next generation console that Nintendo puts out, it's going to be a $70 minimum for the games.
Right.
Yeah.
With like exceptions for the smaller titles like WarioWare, you know, that's still going to be like $50, but it's going to grow and then do the thing where they say, hey, this is backwards compatible, but if you want to get the 60 FPS patch for Breath of the Wild, shell out another $10 and then you get the Game of the Year edition or whatever. I mean, that's feasible. People were doing, Xbox 360 was doing that back in 2006, 2005. So who knows? They've got a lot of different options as far as the way they sell this. I don't know what they're like, what is the important things that Nintendo wants to put in this next console versus what are the things that we're looking for? Like, I think it's pretty uniform that, yeah, we want a better performing console. The next console will be better performing. Beyond that, it's just what happens with my library. And I think Nintendo is aware that that is the big thing that people are going to be asking about. So
Sure about
and
that?
they've been saying, well, yes, because
Sure
they've been
about that?
saying the thing, like you said, Chris, the thing that they've talked about is that it will continue using their Nintendo Online infrastructure and that your account will carry forward.
So did the Wii U and the 3DS, and so did the Switch.
No, that was a hard cutoff between the Switch and the Wii U. So, I mean, they were like, yeah, that system worked okay for what it was, but we are doing this new thing with Switch because we want it to be carrying forward. We want to have it the cross sort of pollination with mobile. I mean, that initiative seems to have not borne fruit necessarily. We've had success there with they got a lot of money for Fire Emblem because gotcha waifus. But beyond that, I mean, Animal Crossing did okay. Pikmin joke. Mario didn't do what they wanted it to. Different sort of pay structure there as well. So they're just being quirky Nintendo. But I don't know. I think that even though it's not the best, I think they're going to keep pushing forward with what they have as far as the account system goes. And I would assume that, like, what other benefit would that have besides having backwards compatibility with the previous console? Like, what other benefit would that have? Like, except that you're paying for the same Nintendo Online instead of it being a Switch Online. If they don't call it Switch 2, then it's just Nintendo Online. I guess that's the one thing they change.
I want to address something Chris said here. So you brought up some examples about, like, oh, if the OLED had been $500, well, the perceived value between a $300 Switch that plays the same games and a $500 Switch that plays the same games, no, the gulf of $200 is outrageous. Or, you know, the example of the PlayStation, yeah, paying a multiple $100 markup on something that's $500, that's also outrageous. But, like, the PS5 is $500, and that doesn't stop anyone from buying it. It was been out of stock for 2 years. It's selling better than the PS4 sold, which was like the best selling console fucking almost ever. So, like, the difference between $300 and $500 clearly doesn't matter to the market at large. So my point being, like, yeah, if Nintendo is going to peddle out a Switch successor that, like, doesn't justify itself for $500, that's like a different way to look at it. Like, all they've upgraded is the screen and they're charging $200 for it. That's bad value. But if it's a true, like, successor and they do what Sony did, which is just all they did was dial the power up and say, hey, we're going to commit to, like, making good games. Everybody wants it. They're selling gangbusters. So Nintendo could drop the ball. They could do a half-assed port or half-assed machine and charge way too much for it and, like, really shoot themselves in the foot. But, you know, the market needs to look at whatever Nintendo does next and say, that's worth upgrading to. I don't think Squirrel Wheel is going to get them there.
Well, hopefully the software would get there. Like, if they say Mario Kart 9 NX2, $400, people will show up. Yeah, I bet. That has generally been how Nintendo does things, is with compelling software. So I don't think that is the problem. I think it's mostly just the value and perceived value, like you said, EJ, and whether they stick to the hybrid console, that will severely limit the power that they can put out as far as graphical fidelity. Has that mattered for the Switch? No. Will that matter for the next console? Probably still no. But if they do a console, like strictly console version, then it's going to be more powerful, obviously, because they'll stick to that $300 target and they could do a lot more if it's only just outputting to a TV. But is that enough for Nintendo, quirky Nintendo, trying to innovate and surprise and delight like they want to do? Like, I don't know. I mean, is the scroll wheel surprising and delightful enough? I don't think
Probably
so.
not.
Probably not, but it doesn't matter if it's just coming with Mario Kart 9 or, like, you know, the next Animal Crossing, the next Splatoon. Like, they have these huge juggernaut IPs that it does not really matter what you're playing them on.
Look at the GameCube. I think this is going to be the closest analog to what we're going to see with this console, where they just made it stronger. It was the strongest machine that was available on the market at that time, which is still so funny to me in hindsight, given everything that happened after. But it was the strongest machine on the market. It was like a neat design. The cube thing was cool. The little mini discs was adorable. But other than that, it was just a home console. It's just a home console.
When that launched, the reviews of the GameCube were brutal. That console was shit on up and down because it...
Half the size of the regular DVD disc. You can't even fit a normal game on there. They had to cut so many things for that.
Right. Well, there's a lot of things at the time that people were really unhappy with. And it sold, what, 20 million units? Like, it was a complete failure. That is not what Nintendo wants to do with their next console. Like, that would be pretty rough. You have to look at the market. Like, the market is important when you're looking at what you should be doing next as a company. And if specific to the GameCube. Like the PS2 was like marginally underpowered in comparison. They didn't have mini discs holding them back, and you could play DVDs. So they sold 200 million of those damn things because what am I not getting on a PS2 that I can get on Nintendo?
That's another thing is I don't think Nintendo wants to be in direct comparison between Microsoft and Sony. So that kind of lends credence to this rumored console only version. I don't think that's the case. I don't think they would do that. I mean, they could. Obviously, they can zig where we think they'll zag, like we've talked about. Nintendo does whatever the fuck they want. But also, I think the Japanese market is still really important to them. Like they're so extremely dominant. I don't know why they would just give up on that to try and chase what? Like they're not struggling for success with the Nintendo Switch. So what would going back to a console style that they've historically struggled to like compete in the past, like why would they go back to that? Why would they choose that battle?
You know,
I don't know what benefits them from that.
I just had an interesting thought here as I'm like, okay, how do they convince people to buy this when everybody and their mother has a Switch and they're continuing to buy Switches?
That's
They
exactly
make it a
it.
Wii U. The Switch is the Wii U gamepad.
Well, that's what I'm
for it.
saying is remote play to the Switch. Remote play
No.
to your Nintendo
No.
Switch.
No,
Yeah, Nintendo Online.
that
Love
does
it.
not. No, that is what a failure that would be. No, you get people to care about what you're doing next, not by selling another 120 million consoles. You make a Switch Pro, you sell 20 million of those, and you keep making software that sells tens of millions.
That's clearly not happening. So let's move out of the realm of what we wish they would do and into the realm of what is actually going to happen. I'm telling you.
I don't think it's that hard. I think it's just software that only runs on the new console. I mean, PS5 did not struggle to sell when there was so many PS4s out there, despite it just being a more powerful PS4. Like that's the thing. It's a big ugly PS4. But people still want the PS5 because it has the pretty graphics and it's new and it's expensive and you can only with the crossplay stuff, not the crossplay, but the cross generation releases, you can still play The Last Horizon on PS4 and The Last God of War on PS4, which is pretty funny. I can't imagine those being terrible, but obviously they want to be played on the PS5. So Nintendo is not afraid of ripping off that Band-Aid. They are not going to be like, oh no, should we put our next Mario game on both? Like, no, they're just going to put it on the one and say, fork over the money, you want to. And we will. So that's not a big deal. I don't think that they're going to struggle to sell consoles. It's just, the Switch is so successful. I don't know why it's been so successful. I don't know what it is that is like selling it so hard. Is it just the portable aspect of it? And they've had great success with portables in the past. It's not the price of the games. I know that was why 3DS was successful to a large extent. It's because, hey, I can get this console for $150, which is kind of expensive for what it is, but all these games are $40, and then there's like cool downloadable ones that are 10 or 15. So that's awesome. That's a good value.
Yeah, it's the hybrid.
But
100% it's the hybrid. Being able to not only being able to play home console games on the go. Like I remember the first week the Switch came out, I'm riding TriMet and I'm playing Breath of the Wild, and some guy gets on and sits next to me. And after a second, he looks over and then he's like, oh, wow. Like that. Wow. That looks way better than I thought it was going to look on that portable screen. Like it was crazy to him, like how good it looked. And it still is kind of crazy to me. But also in a family home, being able to say like little Jimmy wants to play Switch, but mom and dad would like to unwind and watch something on the TV. Little Jimmy could take the Switch out of the dock and still play the same games without hogging the television. It's been big in my household.
I just wonder if that has the same level of appeal the second time around. Obviously, the 3DS
Right.
did not reach the highs that the DS had, and that song and dance kind of got old. So does another hybrid console hit? Like, do they just say, hey, this is the next Switch, it's more powerful? Like, obviously, that's what I would want. But will they do that? I don't know.
So here's the thing. No matter what they do next, it's not going to sell 120, 130, 150 million units. It's just not. Like, these things come in waves. There's only so many people to sell video game consoles to. And for a vast majority of Switch owners, that's going to be good enough. Like I said earlier, like, why do they need something else, right? The casual market doesn't need the next best thing. So that's going to be tough. We're going to expect a drop in sales regardless.
They're totally going to do this smartphone thing, aren't they?
Oh, stop that. God. I would hate
Smartphone
that.
integration, like, because we're sitting here and going, like,
Ugh.
what's the iteration? Why would they just make a home console? Like, what's the gimmick? It can't just be the scroll wheels. Scroll wheels with smartphone integration, being able to like flip screens around. Like, oh boy, I would hate that. Really, really hate that. But wouldn't that just be on brand? As like, here's a dedicated app that will let you do the smartphone integration components of all of our titles coming to the Nintendo Mobile. I don't know. Like
That would be a fucking death rattle, dude. That would be. I mean, people don't have access to the internet in so many places in the world. You think everyone's going to have a smartphone that's compatible? Well, I mean, that would be insanity. That would be insane. And
sounds like something they would do, though.
Their Switch online app completely fucking failed.
That'd be Tommy Tallarico's Switch 2.
I hate it. I hate the idea that Nintendo's they're in their own world, and it seems that they are generally pretty out of touch, and that when they are successful, they are successful despite themselves.
Except for the Switch. The Switch was a clear success in every single phase. Like, it was the idea that could
it was
bank
a
on
great
their
idea.
years of portable gaming dominance with their stable of IP and getting third-party support. No, that was good.
Yeah, and it was executed well. Part of the reason the Switch did so well too was because for the average consumer, the Switch was an upgrade on both the 3DS and the Wii, which came out in 2006. For a lot of people, there was a pretty massive gap. Parents buying things for their kids. Oh my God, I remember when I was so-and-so and I had a Nintendo, right? And for handheld gamers, the Switch was like such a massive upgrade from the 3DS. The 3DS was, as noted on the Console Crusade console tier list, is the worst thing Nintendo's ever done for a lot of reasons. So for a lot of people, going from the 3DS and the circle pad and the tiny little screen to this like beautiful modern console on the go, like I always joke, like you got Skyrim on a Game Boy. That's a massive leap, and that's in no small part why the Switch has been so successful. You know, Nintendo's always going to make good games, right? Like they're always going to do that, but you've got a lot of people to convince. And Nintendo's standard for success is like greatest selling console ever. And so they're not going to always be able to fucking hit that mark.
I think they should keep it hybrid. That's all.
I'm with you.
I would love that.
They're portable. Yeah, and they are dominant in portable gaming. That's just where they live and breathe. All their portable systems have been like awesome. So why deviate?
As has been talked about for years now, the idea of making a dock that enhances the performance of the machine, there's no reason not to do that. Because you can make a handheld device that costs the same to produce, right? You upgrade the chip a little bit, you keep the screen 720p, which is perfectly fine. You know, you put that extra money in a dock that can enhance the games for television play, and it's like you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, right? You're not really holding developers back from porting games that are really worth playing. The handheld will be a little more powerful, but it doesn't need to be outrageously so because it's not trying to like brute force 4K on your TV anymore. To me, if Sony were doing this, if they had come up with the Switch and sold 150 million units, it seems like they would be able to nail the next logical iteration.
But another thing, a new console, if it's more powerful, would necessitate larger storage and also larger storage on the physical game medium, unless you think they're going to assuage that completely and go purely digital, which I do not think they will do because they have so much stock in physical media. So what does that look like? If this is a console at home, they could go back to discs, but then, hey, that hurts backwards compatibility unless they like glue a little card slot reader in that thing. Like, how does that work?
Storage should not be a fucking problem. Storage is cheap. This should not be a concern.
No, I'm talking about the game storage. The game format is a big deal. I think they max out at 32 gigs.
Why?
Because it's proprietary.
Make something better. Storage is cheap.
Here's my pitch. And this speaks to like exactly what you were just talking about, Nick. We haven't had like the 3DS is dead. Long live the 3DS. You know, it's gone. It's over. They have no handheld on the market other than the Switch. Continue to develop the Switch line, but move it in the direction of the Switch Lite. So we're going to give you a Switch Pro that is a light model. It's portable only. and continue to develop titles for Switch that are exclusively handheld titles while you develop your home console games for the new machine. Eat their cake and have it too in that regard, because then we're still getting excellent on-the-go Nintendo experiences with really high quality, and you could even do like buy it on NX2 or buy it on Switch. Like you could feasibly do that.
Let's make things more convoluted for the consumer. That's always the way to go. Listen, the DS is going to exist alongside the Game Boy Advance. Okay?
Those are both portable consoles, though. Like, if they're making a proper home console, could the Switch continue to be developed as their portable alternative? Like, could they continue to do that?
Well, they would have to make their Nintendo DS Switch also have a card slot reader like the Game Boy Advance bottom part of the DS had.
Again, the blueprint for success is there. They don't need to. Why we're talking about all these like ludicrous fucking
because
ways
it's
that
Nintendo. They're not going to do
know.
it the way that we think they are. Like that is a given. If we expect it, it's not happening. So I'm trying to go like real Charlie Day at the corkboard thing right now, where I'm like, okay, so if this is a home console and the fucking scroll wheel shit's going on, and like what's their mobile device? Like they got to have a handheld device. They always have a handheld device our entire lives. So that's where I see the Switch continuing. That would be a great happy medium for me.
The life of a Nintendo fan.
I just hope that if it's a home console only, that when you put the little Switch game card in, it sticks out the top like a Super Nintendo. That's all I want.
No.
Yeah.
With the little eject button. That'd be cool.
Oh my gosh.
I think that's a big deal though. Like the game card format is a big question mark for me personally. Like if the console's backwards compatible, it has to read that as the next storage medium. Like if it's still portable, it still has to be solid state storage. It can't be a spinning disc. That's a recipe for failure. Like the PSP.
See, all of this would be pretty solvable if Nintendo was willing to take a loss on their hardware, like most reasonable companies, knowing that they're going to make billions of dollars in software sales. But Nintendo just has this boomer mentality about like we refuse to take a loss. And hey, I guess it's worked for them, so why change it? And in which case, trying to break this down logically doesn't matter. So I can just stop my train of thought right now.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has been the Console Crusade podcast. We got through it. Chris came alive towards the end there.
Because he got to talk about a 4chan leak. That's the only way he can feel something.
Bro, you came into this podcast sounding like you smoked a pack of cigarettes last night. Oh, man. I cannot wait to take an ibuprofen and take a nap.